Good evening and welcome to the Kent County Board of Adjustment meeting for April 20th, 2023. As we call the public hearing to order, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Hudson?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Jenkins?
Here.
Mr. Carter?
Here.
Mr. Cusick?
Here.
Ms. Denny?
Here.
That is 6 present.
Would you introduce the staff?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jamie Fensky. I'll be the planning officer here for tonight's meeting. To my left, I have Mark Kennedy, our IT staff, and all the way at the end to the right, we have Fred Townsend, our legal counsel.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask everyone to rise and pledge allegiance to our flag. Any additions or deletions, anything with the agenda? Okay. So will you introduce the public hearing?
Right, so good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jamie Fensky, and I'll preside as the hearing officer for tonight's public hearing. This hearing is being conducted for the purpose of providing the citizens of the county an opportunity to present testimony on these applications before the Kent County Board of Adjustment. Everyone will have an opportunity to speak. This will provide those who wish an opportunity to give their testimony. There is a group of interested citizens in favor or opposed to any of the applications. They may wish to elect one spokesperson among them to present testimony to the board. There is an official recording of these proceedings being made. Therefore, we ask that only one person speak at a time and that they speak clearly. Furthermore, there should be no cross-examination of witnesses permitted during the public hearing, but the board can ask the applicant questions after any opposition if necessary. As a courtesy to other participants in this hearing, a maximum of 5 minutes will be allotted to any person who wishes to provide testimony. The chairperson of the board has the discretion to allow additional time if deemed to be necessary. To make statements when your application is called, and for the record, please give your name, address, and allow our attorney to swear you in prior to providing testimony. Copies of any written statements or exhibits used during the hearing should be presented for identification so that they may be included in the permanent record. The procedure on each variance application will be as follows. Legal notice will be read on each case prior to the receipt of testimony. There will be a brief explanation of the application by the staff. The board will then receive testimony from all of those in favor of the application, followed by testimony of those opposed. Once those persons in favor and those in opposition have had an opportunity to speak, the hearing on that application will be declared closed. Decisions on all applications heard this evening will be made by the board during the business meeting following the public hearing. However, you are not required to remain after the public hearing once your request has been heard and closed. During the business meeting, the board will consider all information of record. A common vote of 4 members of the board shall be required to make a decision on each application. If you do not wish to wait for the business meeting later this evening, you may call the Kent County Planning Department tomorrow between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. at 744-2471 or check the Kent County Planning Department website to learn of the board's ruling. All applicants will receive written notification of the board's decision. This notice may not be mailed until after the next scheduled meeting, but if approved, you are welcome to apply for any necessary permits prior to receiving this by mail. Please keep this decision in your records for both you and all future property owners. The public notice of this evening's hearing was published on April 2nd, 2023 in the Delaware State News. In addition, all of the subject properties were posted with a sign prior to the hearing to further notify the public of the nature of the applications. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to have a statement from council, the purpose of which is to help anyone who is going to give testimony this evening understand what is what is appropriate as testimony before this particular body. Mr. Townsend.
Thank you, Ms. Denning. The test for the granting of area variances is set forth by the Delaware Supreme Court in the case known as the Board of Adjustment versus Quick Check Realty. The legal standard for area variances considers whether a literal interpretation of zoning regulations results in exceptional practical difficulties of ownership. To determine whether the exceptional practical difficulty test is met, this board must consider the following 4 factors. First, the nature of the zone where the property lies. Second, the character and uses of the immediate vicinity. Third, whether removal of the restriction on the applicant's property would seriously affect neighboring properties. And fourth, whether failure to remove the restrictions would create unnecessary hardship or exceptional practical difficulty for the owner in relation to the owner's efforts to make normal improvements to the property. This factor is met only when the difficulties alleged by the owner are practical rather than theoretical and exceptional rather than routine. The inability to improve one's business may qualify as an exceptional practical difficulty. And also, this consideration is where the board considers whether the applicant is seeking more relief than is minimally necessary to relieve the asserted difficulty. In general, the board is not permitted to consider factors other than the ones I listed. Therefore, those speaking both in support of and in opposition to applications are urged to present only information bearing directly on the nature of the zoning district, the characteristics of the area, whether the requested variances would affect neighboring properties, and lastly, whether applicants are confronted with challenges rising to the level of exceptional practical difficulties. In particular, presenters are instructed to exclude from their presentations any discussion of personal disputes or acrimony between the applicant and neighboring property owners, as the board is not authorized to resolve those disputes. That's my comment.
Thank you. Okay, when you're ready, let's start.
First, we have application A-23-03 for K-Hov and Hatteras Hills LLC. You'll see here this is the front of the entrance where they're asking for the variances. So the applicant is K-Hov, the owner is Hatteras Hills LLC. Present zoning district is RS1. Variance is from the maximum height of 6 feet above grade for a subdivision sign, from the required front setback of 25 feet to construct 2 tower structures, and from the requirement that a fence may not exceed 4 feet in height in the front setback to construct a fence with pilasters. Present use is open space. Proposed is open space with sign, fence, and towers. It's in the Levy Court District 2nd for Mr. Hall, located on the northeast and southeast corner of Sophers Row and Four Seasons Boulevard, being at the entrance of Hatteras Hills, approximately 1,050 feet south of Clapham Road, south of Magnolia. Here you will see the exhibit for the variance from the maximum height of 6 feet above grade for the subdivision sign. That measures to the top of the symbol. Here you will see the variance from the required front setback of 25 feet to construct 2 tower structures, approximately 4 foot 3 inches and 4 foot 4 inches from the front property line. And the variance from the requirement that a fence may not exceed 4 feet in height in the front setback, and it's measured 6 feet 9 inches to the top of the pole there. And here's the aerial farther above. So if you want to go ahead and state your name and address and allow the attorney to swear you in.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Content, 2499 South DuPont Boulevard, Smyrna, Delaware.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. And I don't know if the presentation, I know I sent it late yesterday, got out and is it included, but I also have a printout for each of you. Thank you for the opportunity to present these variances. I wanted to start out by talking about who K. Hovnanian is. We've been building homes in Delaware for probably about 20 years or so. This neighborhood in particular is going to be one of what we call our Four Seasons communities, which is age restricted, includes a large clubhouse, lifestyle director, daily activities. It is a registered brand and trademarked with our company. And we have a specific way that we lay out all of these communities that goes along with that branding. Here's the color rendering of the site plan. You can see if you look towards the entrance, there are 2 stormwater ponds, and then behind that you'll see the clubhouse immediately upon entering. And here's some site information, just in case you don't have it. We are planning 255 single-family homes here, and everything is approved. We're under construction now. Site development is proceeding fairly well, all things considered with material shortages. And then I wanted to show you some of the examples of what we've done in Delaware and Eastern Shore, Maryland. We have several Four Seasons communities, and all of them have a similar theme when you enter, which we consider part of our branding for the community. It's consistent across, I think we have Four Seasons in 12 states, and we have a consistent theme among entering any of these communities. You can see there's a large entry feature on both sides. We've got the tower. In this case, this is Middletown. It's just a single tower, and this was based on a site constraint. As we were not the engineer of record, we ended up taking over a project that was platted, I think, 20 plus years ago. So we worked with what we had on the site. Here's a picture of the clubhouse and just kind of a schedule. And again, it just sets the tone for what a Four Seasons community is. From entry on through to daily activities, everything is kind of choreographed, and again, it's an age-restricted community. Here's one down in Lewis. This is our Belterre community. Again, you'll see the same thing, and the entrance features that we are proposing here at Hatteras are very similar. We actually use the same plan that we have down at Belterre. You can see that's what the 2 towers would look like, along with the actual entry feature with the sign area on it. And then again, another clubhouse, similar clubhouse to the last one you saw, and the schedule for activities. And then we have our last one that we have open right now on Delmarva is in Chester, Maryland, and this one is called Kent Island. This community is significantly larger. It's about 1,000 units, so we have a significantly larger entry feature that covers pretty much all corners of this entry and the roundabout. But you can see it kind of sets the tone for what our branding, what our imaging looks like for a Four Seasons community. And that's what we're going to be asking for here in Kent County. So on to our requests. Our Four Seasons logo, which you can actually see printed on here, this diamond shape, is the reason why we're asking for the variance. That diamond that's on the top of this sign would have that logo on it, and we're requesting the variance. You can see we're not too far over. The main portion of our sign with the actual words on it is significantly lower and is within the allotted area or height by code. So our request is that we would be able to exceed that limit and go up to 6 foot 9 inches. And again, that's so that we can put that diamond and kind of cap it off with our logo. Some of the comments when I reviewed the planning staff's recommendation, we kind of disagree with that. If we had a variance for this, it would not negatively impact the neighbors, particularly across the street. Again, the sign as we have it without the logo would be permitted, and we're gonna move forward with building that as is. I think the other comment that we got from staff was that allowing any additional height would impact motorists' ability to see, and we're outside of DelDOT's site triangle, and I have an exhibit in here later that I'll show you, and we stay outside of that. You know, there's actually, I believe there's a site distance easement for DelDOT on the corner, and we're well outside of that area. So the nearest outside property would be over 70 feet away. That's directly across the street. And if you go back into the community, I believe it's almost 200 feet away. The way the roads are situated, again, it does not provide any barrier to motorists being able to properly see. And in fact, with the record plan that was approved by DelDOT and the construction plans, we have this entry feature along with the towers located on the plan, and that's where we're proposing that they would be now, and DelDOT, as well as the county, approved that. I know that was not approval for or permitting to go ahead and construct, but we did have it on the plan. Variance request number 2, I've included the section of code here, which you have in your packet. We're proposing a 3-rail PVC fence, 4 foot 6 inches. You know, obviously we're a little bit over that, and the planning staff has recommended that we stay within that 4 foot. We'd like to have a little bit more height just so that the ratios of the piers and the entry feature that we have kind of work together better instead of having a super tall structure right up at the front with the fence. You know, we're obviously proposing the towers behind that, but we think that this would improve the area, make everything look a lot nicer. And again, it goes along with the branding that we have for our communities, for our Four Seasons communities. And part of that entry is that when you arrive there, when our buyers arrive there, it's a place they want to live. It's something that from the time that they arrive there, it's a sense of arrival. They really like the way that it looks. You drive through a beautiful community, and that has become an expectation. And we set that expectation from the beginning. I did not bring any sales data with us, but we have outsold all of our competitors in the communities or in the localities where our communities are being sold. And even to this day, with higher interest rates and the home building industry slowing down significantly, all of our Four Seasons communities are still taking off, and we're still selling them just about as fast as we can build them. And I think that's a testament to the overall presentation of the community. Again, the way the frontage looks is a big part of that. We're also, so to continue, there's a question about whether or not, going back to the sign and the fence, allowing that additional height would cause an issue with DelDOT's site triangle. As stated previously, it would not. The fence is going to be on the outside of the entry features on both sides. They will not impact that site triangle at all, just as the entry features, which are closer to that area, do not impact that site triangle. And here's a map. I put a couple of drawings on here just to show what it looks like. The distance from the actual street, from the curb back to where this tower starts to go up, to the back of the sidewalk to where the tower structure begins. And we've seen throughout the county, and I don't know if these were permitted or not, but they certainly exist. There are plenty of examples, which we'll get to later, where entry features are certainly within DelDOT's right-of-way. And in some of those cases, we're talking edge of pavement, grass, entry feature. At least here, we have the edge of pavement, we have a curb, we have a grass strip, we have sidewalk, we have more grass. So there's a larger area should, for some reason, a vehicle go off the road. There's more room than has been allotted for some of these other entry features, in particular for this tower. I believe another comment was, again, back to the blocking or obstruction of motorists, and you can see the location of these towers. It's well behind the stopping line. If you look on there, the thick black line up near the crosswalk, that's where a vehicle would be stopping and looking left and right. It's well beyond that to the rear of motorists, and we do not believe, again, it's outside the site triangle, we do not believe it would cause any obstruction. And that's basically what I just said here. And actually, let me see if I can go back and show another image. Based on, we would be more than happy to move these into an area that would work. But unfortunately, because of where the engineer placed these stormwater ponds, there's not enough room at the entrance to move them back further. And where we are proposing that they would be located, Kent Conservation District has taken a look at it and said, where you have them leaves us enough room for maintenance. We would prefer that there wouldn't be anything there and it would just be open space, but you've allowed us enough room for maintenance, and I think that that's another thing that works in our favor. We're out of DelDOT's area, or site triangle area, and Kent Conservation doesn't have an issue with this. I could have just gone to the next slide. So you can see where the decision point is, and this is the site triangle that was included with the record plan. Again, everything that's proposed is out of that, so it doesn't really impact motorists at all. And again, we're leaving enough room for Kent Conservation or the HOA to provide maintenance to those two stormwater ponds. And here it is in color. You can see the red area is the site triangle, green is the entry feature, blue is the fence that we're proposing, and purple are the towers. So I went around the county just to see if I could find some examples where this exists. And within just a couple of miles, Church Creek, again, talking about communities that have their entry feature right in the right-of-way. Church Creek is one of them. It's just a couple feet away. Chestnut Ridge, I'm not really sure how to qualify this structure. The pier that's on it is certainly higher than what would be allowed for a fence. And the structure itself is over 15 feet tall and is within the DelDOT right-of-way. And I don't know what it is or what its purpose is, but it exists and no one has made them take it down. So we think that if something like that could be allowed, then we should be allowed to do what we're proposing, especially since it's, again, well out of the way of motorists. And in this case, you can see from the top right image, 15 feet to the back of the sidewalk. Typically, the right-of-way would extend closer to the property line from the sidewalk and to the other sidewalk, 17 feet. So it's still pretty close. Wild Quail is another example of a pier that is significantly higher. They also have a structure right in the middle of the roadway there, which we're not proposing here. I understand from talking to planning staff that the rules when this was done were completely different than now, but certainly the Chestnut Ridge structure was done sometime in the last 15 years, and I'm pretty sure the rules haven't changed that much. Wild Quail, I believe this is probably 25 to 30 years old. Here's a few more examples of where signs are right up within the right-of-way. On this one in particular, you can see they have a fence that's taller than 48 inches. They have a sign that is, and I know we're measuring to the top of the sign area, but when the staff recommended denial, they kept referencing obstruction of motorists. So to me, that would be an overall structure height, not necessarily just the sign. And you can see, again, within the right-of-way, fences are high, the piers are high. There's a church that has a 5-foot fence that literally runs right up to the roadway. We're not proposing anything that would be anywhere remotely near what they're doing here. So we're hopeful that you guys will see that what we're doing will beautify the area, raise property values just through the sale, the sale of the community and the average value of those homes. And we really think that, again, if we were not able to present the community in the way that we've designed it, as we've designed all of our other communities, it would negatively impact our ability to, again, sell out that community and enhance the area. This is my last example of a sign, and this is right on Route 13. And that sign is huge. I mean, to the top of that is over 10 feet. And if you continue down the street, you'll see that they have massive piers bigger than what we're recommending or proposing. They have a fence that's taller than what we're proposing. But again, these exist, and we would like to be considered the same way that they were considered in our variance requests. Do you guys have any questions?
Okay, anybody have any questions? Okay, then I do.
Thank you.
Morgan, go ahead if you. No, you go. So, first things first, I have a statement. We have a code here, a county code, and typically most builders, engineers refer to our code prior to designing things that don't fit. And I've been doing this for a long time. And this was well thought out, well designed, and it is not a book of suggestions. It is the code of Kent County, Delaware. Right here, it's the capital city of the state that started a nation. So just saying, and we take, again, you haven't said anything that I would consider to be an exceptional practical difficulty. And I just need to say that. And I'm not sure I understand why you don't believe that your reputation, your housing, and other things are good enough to sell homes, and why you need this decoration at the front. So if you want to address that, I'm
Sure.
happy to hear.
Again, this is a part of our image for this type of community. It's a registered trademark named in a type of community, and this is how we design them all across the country. Our reputation for home building speaks for itself, but when people are looking for a higher level community like the Four Seasons communities that we have, they have a higher standard of what they're looking for as far as an entry feature and the way that it feels when they drive into their communities. So we're following the formula that we've used across the country.
Okay, so that being said, and I can appreciate your, wanting to advertise and wanting to create this major monument to your business or your community, but it does not fit within our code, and that would not be the reason you just gave me is not an exceptional practical difficulty. This can be seen from the highway. I don't see an exceptional practical difficulty. I just want to say that, and if you can certainly rebut, but.
The practical difficulty that we believe we would face is that if we're not able to present this the way that we want, is that our sales would suffer and we would not be able to complete the neighborhood as we intend to do so.
I just want to alert you to the fact that throughout Kent County, other communities have sold houses without that. And the one example that you showed us with wild quail predates the existing rules. So that being said, anybody else have a comment or question?
Yes, I have a question. I listened to your testimony, and I just want to ask to be sure. Your buyers are convinced that these 3 variances need to be granted to buy a house in your development?
Our buyers are expecting an overall finished packaged community, and this is part of that. And we haven't had any communities where we've not been able to build this, so I can't say that this would stop someone from buying if we don't get these variances, but the reason our sales are so high with these types of communities is the overall presentation of the community, and that is something that we see across the country, which is why we design them the way that we do.
I can appreciate what you're saying in terms of how you design your development. I'm just a little bit hard-pressed with the fact that it sounded like these variances were necessary in order for the buyer to have, the buyer's going to have such an impact if we grant these 3 variances and they'll move into this community. It sounded like that. Maybe I missed something.
Many of our customers, when they come into our communities, into the sales centers, reference what it looks like when you drive in. You have a massive entry monument. I do not have a set of surveys that I can provide to you tonight that says if it didn't look like, if we didn't have this entry monument with these towers, we would not buy here. That's not something that we necessarily ask, but when our sales team goes back and they look at all of their sales, all their customer interactions, one thing that comes up is the overall presentation of the community, especially that first sense of arrival. And this is what creates that sense of arrival.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this application?
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in favor of this application, please indicate by raising your electronic hand or pressing *3 if you're joining us by phone. I see no hands raised online at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition of this application?
And if there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in opposition of this application, please indicate by raising your electronic hand or pressing *3 on your phone. Still no hands raised online.
Thank you. Seeing no one, we will move on to the next application. We have application A-23-07 for Ridge Realty Properties, LLC. The present zoning district is BG, Business General. Proposed variance is variance from the minimum parking space requirement for retail use and the required 75-foot front setback on a major roadway to enable the construction of a retail store. Present use is vacant. Proposed use is retail store. in Levy Court District 4 for Mr. Scott, located on the southeast corner of Little Heaven Road and East Front Street, South Magnolia. Here you will see they are seeking a variance from the minimum parking space requirement for retail use and the required 75-foot front setback on a major roadway. The required parking spaces is 65. They are asking to put in 50 spaces. That would be a variance request of 15 spaces less. They are also proposing to put the store 69.5 feet from the front property line, and the required is 75 feet. This is looking down Front Street, from the corner of the Front Street, down the highway and the road, in the other direction. This is looking at it from Front Street, one of the entrances on the property, and the aerial. So if you would like to state your name and address and allow the attorney to swear you in.
Certainly. Jonathan Street, 309 South Governors Avenue.
Mr. Street, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Does Mr. Cusick have to recuse himself? Are you going to sit up there? Okay. Good evening, everybody. This is, can this be brought up full screen? Oh, there we go. As I said, my name is Jonathan Street. I'm an associate with the Becker Morgan Group, and I'm here tonight to request two variances. One of them is from the front setback, and the other one is for a parking reduction. So just to give you an idea of where we are, we're right at the Little Heaven interchange of Route 1 and what is South State Street. We're about 5 miles south of Dover Air Force Base on Route 13. This is just a closer aerial image of the site. We're right on the corner of Little Heaven Road and East Front Street, right there in Frederica. This is a previously approved site plan. They had constructed the entrances previously, and these are approved and constructed DelDOT entrances as they sit right now. The two sections of code that we are requesting variances from, as stated before, is a encroachment into the 75-foot front setback, from a major roadway in the BG zoning district, and a slight reduction of off-street parking of 1 space per 160 square feet from what is required in code. As you are fully aware, the criteria for requesting variances have to meet kind of the four-way test: the nature of the zone, the character and the use in the area, whether removal of the restriction would adversely impact your neighbors, whether failure to remove the restriction has an exceptional practical difficulty for the owner to improve the property as it is zoned. I'm going to go through the first two right here, the nature of the zone and the character of the uses. That's kind of undisputed. This is from the county zoning map. It is zoned BG. And as you can see, the Little Heaven area, you've got a swath of commercial development or commercial zoned property along the 13 corridor with residentially zoned and occupied units to the rear. Going to the first two items, as I said, meet the standard of the test, which is the zoning and the use in the area. The third one is impact to the neighboring parcels. We are requesting a front setback, which that is on the Little Heaven side. That's on the west side of the site, or the lower end of the page there. The rear setback itself, we're not impacting those neighbors. The building sets within the required setbacks. The rear setback to the north of us, where there's another residential property, and the building is set and nestled right within the building envelope for those two property lines. The only impact that we have to our neighbor will be DelDOT. DelDOT will be impacted. That's the only neighbor that's impacted by this right now. We are, where it sits right now at the requested variance, we're greater than 105 feet from the travel lane of that road. Staff report does specify or reference it to be a necessary buffer for the safety of customers and the traveling public alike. And I would point out that we are again, well over 105 feet away from the travel lanes of this. If you look at the Old Beach Road, which is across Route 1 itself, we're more than 3 times the distance setback that those existing structures currently have. And if we go, when we talk about impacts to DelDOT being the neighbor, these are examples, and not only examples, these are the approved site distance triangles for the approved and constructed entrances. And if you see on this slide, there's a thicker black line that denotes the property boundary. And obviously, if we set more than 60 feet on any side from the 2 streets, we are not impacting DelDOT because the building itself doesn't come close to these site distance triangles. And that's in regards to safety and impacting DelDOT itself. Obviously, DelDOT, we would say, is the expert on traffic for the area. The road, staff's report makes reference to, if I can, makes reference to potential of high amounts of traffic. DelDOT's own statistics and data that's published on their website counts these trips on this road, on Little Heaven Road, at 1,071 trips. I took a look around the county to see if I could find any other examples of roads that met that same, what's called the AEDT, the average annual daily traffic. And I came up with 2 in the area, at least 2 that I found right off the bat. And one of them is North Little Creek Road and White Oak Road. And if any of you are obviously from the county and travel these roads, you'll know that they're not traveled very much. But those trips are at 1,049 and 1,100 trips themselves. So although this is classified as a major, I would suggest that this has more to do with its proximity to Route 1 for the potential of the major roadway itself, which is why we have that 75-foot setback. Those other 2 roads, White Oak Road and North Little Creek Road, are classified as minor roads. If this was classified as a minor, we wouldn't be here because that setback would be 60 feet, not 75 feet. Having said that, I believe next week, Levy Court is proposing an ordinance change that would make us not have to be here. We got caught in kind of a catch-22 because that got delayed. But in any event, if they do fail to go forward with that, that would reduce this 75-foot setback to 40 feet. So we're well outside that 40 feet, and we're just a smidge under the 75. With that, the next variance, I'll try to keep it brief, is a parking reduction. We've been here before. We have the same report from Dollar General. We can provide these 65 spaces that are required. However, we'd be back for another variance because we'd need to be parking within the front setback. We figure we'd ask for a 15-space reduction, as Dollar General themselves, with over 18,000 stores, does their homework, and they only need about 50 to begin with, even at their highest peak holiday season. And with that, we're here because these stores are meant to provide I'll say a neighborhood style grocer to communities, which growing up in this community, I feel like we are missing that. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm here. Please ask them. I'm happy to answer them.
Before we get started, I just got to go on record that I'll be recusing myself from this application as I'm employed with the applicant.
I would like to add one thing. I apologize. I'll keep this brief. There was one letter of opposition. That letter of opposition from the last time referenced gas stations, traffic, parking, et cetera, et cetera. The gas station is not part of this site development plan, so environmental concerns really could be managed that way because there's no gas station as part of it. And frankly, if there's so much traffic that parking is a problem, it's a good problem to have. That means the store is doing well. I don't see that as a problem, but that's kind of something funny that people, not enough parking. Well, if there's not enough parking, it's a good problem to have. It means things are going well. So again, I'm here. Please ask questions. Mr. Owen is here from Pentex Ventures. He's also, as part of the developer, if you have any questions for him, he's available as well.
I do have one question. Do you
Certainly.
know what the posted speed limit is on that, what they're calling a major highway? Do you know what that posted speed limit is on that road in front of that?
Oh, I didn't know. And I I think it's 45. I want to say it's 40.
So it's under
40,
50
45.
It's under 55.
Yeah, oh yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for staff. Is that access road considered a major highway?
It's considered a major roadway.
And ultimately DelDOT is the person who sets the rules about that. They will, whether we approve it or not, they'll either put the yes or no on it, and that's kind of typically written in stone, so.
Have you gotten any negative feedback from DelDOT regarding your site plans?
The entrance is already built. So the entrances were built as part of a previously approved plan. This plan that we're putting forward is actually a less intense plan. The use is less intense. It should generate less traffic. The entrance is already approved and certified, so we don't intend on having to go through entrance plan process with DelDOT. DelDOT will still have to weigh in and still have to give their little stamp of approval, but we don't anticipate any issues as they're already built and constructed.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. In this economic climate, when a number of businesses are either closing or reducing, you guys are aggressively building. I've noticed what you've done in the last year and a half, just in Kent County.
Anybody else?
If I could.
Please.
Could you explain what you meant when you said this is going to be less intense a use than was originally planned?
So the previously approved plan was some strip retail and a gas station. So a gas station and strip retail, according to the ITE, is it generates more traffic.
So I have a question, and probably doesn't make sense, but obviously the entrance and all that, those things are there, but the building is not. And so
Yes.
from the time you would break ground, get through all the permitting process, break ground, when would you anticipate this to be done? Just a guesstimate.
So let me think. Now I have to look at, August? There you go.
December, okay.
He's
So
the one that
also,
rules.
obviously, that is long after the next regional planning meeting and the changes that would occur to make this legal anyway. The setback.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
so, okay, just want to say that for the record. I mean, typically, this body doesn't make decisions based on what might happen.
Correct.
But they're far in.
Which is why I'm
pretty far
standing
down
here
the road.
arguing this tonight and making sure that we.
Okay.
making
I just
sure that
wanted
we
to
get-
point that, I just wanted to point that out.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else?
So the changes that are under consideration impact one or both of the variances?
Just one, just the setback.
Just the setback, that's what I thought. And I think I've heard testimony offered in the past by, perhaps by you or by others in a similar situation, that you don't custom build these structures. No. So I think it would make sense for you to offer some testimony as to why you have an exceptional practical difficulty as opposed to building a building that fits in your building envelope.
Certainly, and I can actually go back and speak to it. So if you look at this slide, this kind of demonstrates where the building sits with the two red areas. So the red area in the back or the top of the screen is the rear setback. So obviously we don't want to push it closer to any of the residences back behind us. And also we can't because of traffic circulation itself. So if you look at the building, you're looking at I'll call it the building envelope is somewhat of a triangle. And someone might say, well, why don't you push the building forward towards Front Street? And trust me, I tried it because I don't want to stand here asking for this variance. We have to push it so far forward that then the only parking we get in front of the structure is the 16 spaces that are there. All the parking then gets shifted to the back of the structure and or that the parking that's on the side, and that's not necessarily conducive to the business plan of the business. You don't want parking in back of the structure, you want parking in the front. You want the front of the building to address a corner. You want all the parking as close to the entrance as you can. Doesn't matter how far it is. If it's further than 1 foot, the customers don't want it. They want to be right there at the front door. So that's really what forced us. And what you're seeing is a scale. I mean, it's a scale drawing, is what the drawing will be. But because of the county requirements for double stack parking, it also pushes us a little further back. So we have to have that landscape island in between those two rows of parking. And we've got a 15-foot offset from the front of the parking based on fire code. So it just keeps pushing the building further and further back. And if we try and basically take out that center row of parking and push the building all the way forward, all we're left with is about 16 spaces, and it pushes everything else out the back. And then that just messes up circulation for deliveries, customers, and the like.
So I may have missed it, but my question went more to why it is you can't design a smaller building. And I think you have an answer to that, but what is that answer? Why can't you build a building that is a few feet less deep and fit in that spot?
So the buildings are their national, I hate to say their national brand, and Bill might be able to expand on it, but these buildings are slightly larger than some of their other structures because they are meant to serve local communities and the neighborhood style communities with, which is my last slide, local fresh produce and foods, because they're kind of in a what do they call them, a food desert. The closest south is Milford, which is about 9 miles south down Route 1, and then you've got a food line right there at the Air Force Base about 5 miles to the north. So it's kind of in this location where there's not really anywhere to go get fresh produce on your way home from work or on your way in somewhere. You can't stop and grab something that you need. And that's why these buildings are slightly larger. They need the larger building for the refrigeration for the produce and the like. And they have these, they have 19,000 stores nationwide, and they do these studies and they get these stores and these buildings to a very specific prescriptive dimensions. And they nice and orderly fit all the things that they need in those stores. And so you can't just lop off 10 feet, 5 feet, 2 feet. You can't make these stores, because then it doesn't become cost effective to do it.
Anybody else? So I just, excuse me, have just for my own thought processes. An application for this property came before us back in like 2019 or something. Okay. Mm-hmm. And my recollection was the main reason that it didn't flow. It was approved, but there was a lot of controversy about the gas station. So right. By coming back, having eliminated the gas station, the canopy, and all of that, it fits better. And I just was wondering if had that not been the case, you would be having gas as well. There was a lot of objection to the gas station aspect.
I can tell. I've done a couple gas stations. They're okay. Not usually that popular.
Okay. I was just wondering if you knew.
No, I don't think there's room to then do a gas station once we take up this part of the site. I don't believe there's the necessary room that they would need.
Good point. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you. No other questions? Going once. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this application?
Is there anyone?
Sorry.
Do you want me to swear in again?
No, you can acknowledge that you've sworn the oath.
Jonathan Contant, K. of Nanian. I was not aware that this was happening when we did our initial planning with Hatteras Hills. And just to give you an idea, when we go through what we call our white book process, which is the feasibilities, we look at what's available in the area. And at the time, as Mr. Street pointed out, your nearest grocery stores were either up on Route 10 in Milford or in Camden. And so I just wanted to point out, in a day and age where we're trying to reduce the number of miles traveled by people, and we're we're already under construction for 255 single-family homes. I'm in favor of approving this variance because this gives our residents the opportunity to travel to a place where they can get food without getting on Route 1. They can use those bypass lanes and go right down under the overpass over here and go back home and be within a mile and a half of where they live. Again, reducing the number of miles traveled, opportunities for crashes, things like that. So I just want to put my support behind this. Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in favor of this application, please indicate by raising your electronic hand or pressing *3 on your phone. No hands online.
Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition of this application?
Yep. If you would like to speak in opposition of this application and you're joining us online, please indicate by raising your electronic hand or pressing *3. No hands raised online.
Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing for application A-23-07. Okay. Next, we have application A-23-08 for New Birth Church of God. The applicant is Mr. Donald Moore. The owner of the property is New Birth Church of God. Present zoning is AR, agriculture residential. Proposed variance is variance from the 25% expansion of a non-conforming use to construct a 24 by 21 foot garage. Present use is church. Proposed the same with garage. It's in the Levy Court District 4th for Mr. Scott. Located on the south side of Unity Lane, approximately 212 feet west of Deep Grass Lane, south of Houston. Here you will see the proposed 25% expansion with the 24 by 21 foot garage on there. The existing structures on the property is the church itself, pump house, and a 10 by 10 shed. This is looking at the existing church that's there. The pump house and the shed is to the left with the little playground. This is the rear of the property. Coming along the side, looking down the roadway, and in the other direction. Aerial. So, Mr. Moore, if you would like to give your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in, please.
Donald Ray Moore, 112 Beth Place, Dover, Delaware, 19901.
Mr. Moore, I'm going to ask you to pull that microphone a little closer to your face. And I'll also ask you whether you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do affirm.
Thank you.
Okay, so now it's your turn to tell us what you're trying to do. We're recording this for the minutes, so just, we'll need to be sure you speak a little louder or get that closer, okay?
Yes, ma'am. New Birth Church of God will be constructing the proposed garage to store 15-passenger van that we use for transporting people to and from church. And we'll also use it for just general storage of extra equipment such as tents and chairs and benches and so forth. We haven't had any opposition to it to the best of our knowledge, and we don't see where it adversely affects the neighborhood. And we just need it for general storage.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
So the dimensions that you give us, the 24 by 21, that's the capacity that you need, and would that give you anticipated future storage as well, or is that just about, would you be maxed out with that?
We shouldn't need any future storage for that particular site at that particular church unless we changed, unless we had an addition to the church. So it should be enough to handle the current needs. Yes.
Anybody else? Looks like no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this application?
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in favor of this application, please indicate by raising your electronic hand or pressing *3 on your phone. No hands raised online.
Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition of this application?
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in opposition of this application, please indicate by pressing *3 on your phone or raising your electronic hand. No hands raised online.
Thank you. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing for application A-23-08. Thank you. Next, we have application A-23-09 for the Pool Doctor and the Edwards. The applicant is the Pool Doctor. The owners are Sally Ann and Alfred James Edwards Jr. Present zoning district is AR, Agricultural Residential. The proposed variance is a variance from the 23% maximum impervious coverage to install an in-ground pool with concrete surround. Present use is residential. Proposed the same with an in-ground pool with concrete surround. Levy Court District 4th for Mr. Scott. Located on the south side of Abigail Circle, approximately 340 feet from Quinn's Way, being lot 22 of Southfield subdivision, north of Houston. Here you will see the variances from the required 23% maximum impervious surface coverage to install an in-ground pool with concrete surround. The existing total property area is 21,780 square feet. The permitted impervious would be 5,009 square feet for 23%. The existing total impervious area is 5,886 square feet, being 27.02%. Proposed additional impervious is 291 square feet, being 1.34%, and the proposed total impervious would be 6,177 square feet for 28.36%. This is looking at the front of the home, down the driveway, looking down Abigail Circle, the rear of the home. This is looking from the back of the property. Again, at the back of the home. And the aerial. All right, if you would like to state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in.
My name is Ralph Figueroa. Business address is 3395 South DuPont Highway, Camden, Delaware.
Mr. Figueroa, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Before we get too far into this, I just want to, I have no intention of recusing myself, but the Figueroa family has taken care of my swimming pool for forever, since it got there. Well, maybe, I don't know, 40 years or something. So I just want to state that, but there's no reason that I feel I can't pass fair judgment. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, we've put 2 pools in this neighborhood last year, the same exact size pools, directly across the street from Mr. and Mrs. Edwards. As you can see, I did begin. I was told by my staff on a Friday that the permit should be ready on Monday morning to be picked up. It was early in the season, and we were looking to squeeze it in a window of nice weather to get ahead and generate some money in a seasonal business. Now, on the back side of the property that we're looking at right now, that is what they would call common ground. The builder has approved of the Mr. and Mrs. Edwards using that common ground. They maintain that common ground. There is, from the back property markers to the fence, the neighboring fence is 38 foot. The span of the property is 112 foot, roughly, by 38 foot. That is 4,256 square foot. They pay a lawn service to maintain that square footage for the past year and 4 months. First State Lawn Care, Dennis Neal takes care of that. Basically, we are just looking for a simple 687 square foot to put in this pool that they requested me to build for them. When I met Mr. and Mrs. Edwards had just recovered from hip surgery, and she was looking for therapy to help with her hips. It's something that they just purchased the house. It's something that they've been having a dream about in regards to their forever home, and just looking to be able to grant us the variance to continue with this project. If I am denied it, I will, of course, remove just the walls. That's all that is in there, and push the dirt right back in. I've been in business for well over 30 years, and I stand by my name, and I would do nothing to harm that or harm anything in our community. Like I said, we put in 2 pools the same exact size straight across the street, and I didn't think it would be a problem at all until this came back for me. So that is basically all I have right now. Mrs. Edwards, is there anything you would like to say?
We'll have to ask her separately.
I'm sorry.
That's
Sorry.
okay.
Okay,
We'll
I'm
ask
sorry.
her separately. At
Sorry.
this point, it's our turn to ask you questions.
At this point, if anybody would like to ask me any questions, please feel free.
Yeah, I just have one comment. So it's not the pool that is the problem. It's the concrete surrounding, or the concrete sidewalk around it. So the pool could stay. It's just the concrete surrounding. And then obviously the existing, she was already over the impervious coverage anyway. So long story short is you don't need to fill in the pool. The pool is fine. So, I mean,
okay.
So it's the proposed concrete around the pool that's what's caused.
So the 291 foot,
yes,
square foot.
Yes. So I mean, you if you want to talk on that, like, is it pretty basic, like concrete pad around? Is there any way we could reduce that at all? I mean, is it just?
We were just 3 foot around the pool, to be able to put a safety cover on there properly without using lawn tubes or anything. That would be very important. Child safety, everything in regards to that. I mean, I don't want to suggest anything, but I just suppose if they wanted to, they can go with pavers, which is impervious. But this is definitely the much cost-efficiently way to do it, and it keeps everything looking uniform compared as to what they have going on with their brand new home.
I had a question. Is there a reason why you couldn't use impervious concrete opposed to the traditional concrete with this particular pool?
Well, it's funny, not funny, but I have a company that we've acquired called Biodesign, and there is the material is pervious. Water goes straight on through it, but it is stronger than concrete. So yes, there is a material that I could use. You're looking at an extraordinary amount of cost, more than pavers to put down there for that.
I'm good. I think I have a couple questions for the owner, maybe, or if you can answer them. Just like any drainage issues on that property at all?
No, there's actually a storm drain in the very back left corner of the property. I do a lot of lines and grades up in Newcastle County. We don't do those here for pools. Everything slopes that way. There's absolutely no water, standing water or anything like that. And like I said, they have the common ground back there that they're required to maintain. Nobody else maintains that, which is 4,256 square foot. In fact, if you were able to zoom in, I have other photos, but I forgot to enter them. Those other guys are really good. But the neighbor next to him was allowed to plant trees and stuff, which basically they take care of also. So that's all.
Anybody else? So I just have a question. In my pool, the pavement is 3 foot wide, and as you know, I have a fence that goes right up to the concrete.
Yes.
And the cover that I have that you guys installed, years ago, was installed because my fear of the grandchildren. Yes. I needed the elephant can walk on this cover, and thank God we have it. So it is all of that 3 foot. I know, the bands that hold it on and the screws in the ground. In order to stretch that, does it really have to be that? I know it goes right up to the fence. Does it have to be 3 feet?
Yes, it does have to be 3 feet. Otherwise, we would have to basically have the cover custom made in a way, because it stretches. You get we don't get any snow around here anymore, but if we were to get like 6 inches to a foot, the cover will stretch all the way in. Now, around the pool, you have 1 foot of the cover goes around the perimeter, covers the perimeter. Then it gives you your roughly 16 to 18 inches of strap with a spring that allows it to move in and out. On average, my anchor is 5 inches from the edge of the 3 foot of concrete, giving it enough support to where, God forbid, it wouldn't snap the back of the concrete right off.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Did we see a picture of the driveway?
Yeah, that's what I had a question. It's probably more for the owner, like that. Like, what's the use of that extra added driveway piece there? Is there a purpose for that? That's probably that's for the owner. I know.
I have a question for staff. Based off the property line here, is this true or is it?
Oh, no, our property lines are not survey accurate on the maps. You're welcome.
So it seems to me as though the questions that we now have asked we need to let Mr. Figueroa go and have the property owner come to answer that question. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Was there any additional information that staff wanted to offer as regarding the potential materials that could be used to serve
yes.
in compliance? Yes. Okay.
Yes, thank you. So the concrete and pavers would count towards impervious coverage unless they used pervious pavers or pervious concrete. Thank you.
And one quick thing for staff is, did you guys calculate it as just 3 foot? Is that the calculation?
Yes, they gave us the number for the 291, which is the 3 feet that the applicant submitted.
So this gray area on this one depiction is 3 feet all the way around. It's maybe not to scale, but or is it larger than that?
Correct. No, that's the 3 foot that they proposed.
But isn't that minimally required that you have a 3 foot walkway surrounding a pool?
That is a permitting question. Sorry, I don't have that answer. Mm-hmm. I do believe there is a 3 foot, but I don't fully know the requirements.
Mr. Figueroa might know that.
You need 3 foot of concrete, pavers, You need a structure around there, otherwise the ground is going to sink. You're going to have sinkholes. You're going to have washout underneath the pool. You want the concrete to pitch ever so slightly away from the pool as the water rolls downhill.
Yeah, I think it's a safety issue too. I think it's minimally required that you have a 3 foot wall.
I had another question for you. If they were not to put the 3 feet of concrete around the pool, in your opinion, could it collapse?
Could the pool collapse? There's a footer down on the ground, down around the base of the pool. Collapse, cave in, possibly. But only if the water was out of the pool. But it really does need the 3 foot of concrete around the pool. And all pools should have at least that. And I also feel like all pools should have a safety cover itself. I see a lot of water bags that are absolutely not safe. And there's a lot of laws passed, and I'm just not sure why that's not one of them. That's all I can say there. It will save lives.
And can you just, and again, I don't want to put you on the spot, but give me an idea of, with some of these proposed impervious materials, just give me a ballpark or a guesstimate of the difference in cost.
Okay. The one I was talking about, which is completely pervious to where the water will go right on through, it's a product called from Biodesign. You're looking at $45 a square foot for that material versus anywhere, depending on your concrete guy, anywhere from $10 to $14 a square foot.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
So how about decking, wooden decking? Does that serve as impervious, or is that counted as impervious?
Decking would not count towards impervious coverage.
Is that not a suitable
Wood
material?
Decking has been used many times around pools. It does work very well. I'm not a fan of it in a way, just because I don't like reptiles, and they like hovering underneath there. It does filter through, but other than that, I don't recommend it on that part. That's all.
Anybody else? Ooh, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Do we want to ask the property owner to come up for questioning? Okay, and we're going to ask the homeowner to come forward.
Absolutely.
Jamie, is this the sketch that you guys took the square footage off? No, all right.
No.
So I thought it's because obviously the aerial has that little cutout on the backside of that driveway.
Yeah. So, ma'am, if you could state your name, address, and allow our attorney to swear you in, please.
Sally Edwards, 348 Abigail Circle, Harrington, Delaware.
Ms. Edwards, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, you can tell us why you want this variance now.
I'm sorry.
Please tell us why you want the variance, and there are going to be some questions for you, but this is your opportunity to tell us why that you would like this variance.
Okay. Well, I wanted it as a form of exercise that's not high-impact exercise. I've always wanted a pool, and when we bought this property, we weren't aware that there was a coverage thing, so when we were kind of denied, that was a shock to us, because we thought that we would get a pool because the neighbors, had gotten pools, and so, we were a little disappointed when we found out we had to file for the variance to get the pool installed.
Okay, so questions?
Just the existing driveway, how it, you go back to the aerial. Yeah. So what's that where it goes all the way back to the rear side of the house?
Well,
what's that used for?
It's got it's a 3-car garage house, and that little section there is another car garage.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Is the impervious concrete in your budget for the pool?
I'm not even sure what that is, or my husband normally takes care of that stuff, and he's actually in Connecticut due to work, but he is online, so he's called in, so.
We had asked about the difference between the concrete that you're applying for and other forms of impervious soil, and the difference was $14 and something. $45. But one is 14. One is 14, and the other is $45 a square foot. No, 45. 45. A square foot. Okay, so your recommendation is we ask your husband about that. Beth, okay. Anybody else have a question of Mrs. Edwards?
Do any of the neighbors have objections to it that you are aware of?
No, the ones that I've talked to, no one has a problem with it.
Okay, and just as a matter for the record, have you ever had runoff issues with water or your immediate neighbors? I mean, have you ever had? I mean, we've had a lot of rain from periods from time to time. Does that flood the backyard or other people's yards, or does it run off?
Well, a few months or so ago, we did have a little bit of a runoff problem because they hadn't opened up that drain that they have back in the back because they're still working back in that section. But just this week, they've been working on that and getting it opened up.
They're installing a drain in the back of your property, you're saying?
At the back, well, behind us is, it's not really to the back of us. It's off to the side to the back of us. At the corner of the property, there is a drain, and they have underground that go to ponds, yes.
Anybody else?
I have a question for staff in regards to this. You have a suggestion about maybe they work with the county to remove some impervious surface area on the property. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So, interestingly enough, as Mr. Street spoke about earlier, we are proposing the new zoning ordinance. The new zoning impervious coverage for this property would allow 25%. So obviously that new zoning ordinance has not been approved at this point. I cannot testify if it will or will not be approved, but if it was approved as proposed, this property would be permitted at 25%. So they could possibly remove to get down to 25, or
anybody else? Questions? Thank you. I think we'll probably ask some questions of your husband.
Okay, thank you.
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in favor of this application, please indicate by raising your electronic hand or pressing *3 if you're joining us by phone. Okay, I just got your hand raised. If you can unmute your line by pressing *6 and then give us your name and address and be sworn in by our attorney.
Alfred J. Edwards, Jr., 348 Abigail Circle, Harrington, Delaware.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You may proceed.
Yes, I think you guys, my wife and Ralph kind of gave you the details, but all I really wanted to add was that my wife and I, my wife is retired. I'm retiring soon, so we were looking for a home where we could retire. And as a part of that plan, we also knew that we were going to want to put in a pool. And we intentionally chose Southfield, quite honestly, because the lots were a half acre. We know that other people have pools, and we didn't know that it would be a problem. And we bought the house new from the builder. So the fact, I guess, that I'm a little surprised, I guess, that it's over, you know, the impervious coverage is over where it should be. And, you know, I'm wondering, was that a problem with the build? Couldn't it have been picked up earlier when the builder was getting permits or plot plans and things like that, so that, you know, we wouldn't have walked into this sort of predicament, you know, which kind of throws a wrench into our retirement plans. And the other point I guess I want to make is, you know, what Ralph mentioned was we do have a fairly significant open area at the tail end of our property. It slopes and it goes back to a drainage pipe that they are currently finishing up. And then we also, I don't know if they mentioned it, but we also have a drainage grid in our front yard as well. And since the way our property is laid out, all the water that, you know, the water tends to roll down towards our property anyway, and then it goes into the storm drains. So I don't feel like it's going to create a problem for any of the neighbors.
Mr. Edwards, one of the questions that arose during Mrs. Edwards' testimony was the difference between the cost of the concrete that is intended to go down or a newer type of concrete or surround for the pool that is more impervious. And the difference between the cost of that is $14 a square foot versus $45 a square foot. And I just want to, and so we want to understand if that creates a hardship for you.
It would create a hardship. And the reason I say that is because, quite honestly, to be honest, I miscalculated the cost of the pool anyway. So we went quite a bit over budget. You know, the pool was actually over what we originally budgeted. So we've kind of extended ourselves a bit on that. So adding additional expense would be even, you know, more challenging for us, coupled with the fact that we realize that we do have to put a fence around it and whatever the safety gates and, you know, whatever other expenses go along with that as well. And the other concern I have too is, you know, with my wife's hip issues and, you know, as we get older, whatever we do, we have to make sure, you know, I want to make sure that we're being safe with whatever improvements we make. You know, so if we put pavers out there, would they potentially be, you know, a tripping hazard as we get older or not? So, you know, I kind of want to make sure whatever we do, we have smooth surfaces and, you know, that we're able to, you know, walk across.
Okay, so one of my colleagues has done the math here, and the difference between the two is the difference between, and I'm not going to give you the, I am going to give you the exact figure, between $4,074 and $13,995 for the more impervious surface. And I'm just, obviously, you've already given testimony that it would create a hardship. The other thing I just want to go back to, your wife answered the question. Number one, the driveway was there when you purchased the house?
That's correct.
Okay. And it's needed because of the extra garage. I just want to verify that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So, you know, the garage, the two-car garage is to the side of the house. So, and then, you know, and the one-car garage sort of faces the road. So when you pull into the driveway, you have to have enough turn-in radius to pull into the two-car garage with two vehicles, you know, potentially for two vehicles. And then, you know, and then obviously it runs straight into the one-car garage as well.
Okay, I actually, it's up on the screen, and I can see now where you have to come up, and it has to be wide enough for you to make that turn. Okay, I get that now. I see it. Okay, anybody else? Okay, Mr. Townsend, are you good, or are you?
Well, I could see why you wouldn't want to make the lane narrower from the left side to give you the turning radius, but you could remove driveway on the other side, couldn't you?
You mean on the
sidewalk
on the right-hand side going in?
Yes.
Could we remove? Could it be removed? The answer to that's yes. I don't know how much of it you could remove, but then you also, it would impact we'd also have to do something with, obviously with yard grading. I don't know what that would cost, but then there's the sidewalk that runs across the front of the house, joins up to that blacktop. So that means we'd have to do something with the concrete as well. You know, the sidewalk would have to be reworked.
Okay, anybody else? Thank you so much, Mr. Edwards.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this application?
If there's anyone else joining us online that would like to speak in favor of this application, please indicate by raising electronic hand at this time. No hands raised online.
Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition of this application?
Again, if you're joining us online and would like to speak in opposition of this application, please indicate by raising your electronic hand. No hands raised online.
Thank you. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing for application A-23-09. Next, we have application A-23-10 for Training Tales LLC. The applicant is Training Tales LLC. The property owners are Thomas and Jody Moore. Present zoning district is AR, Agriculture Residential. The proposed variance is a variance from the requirement that all kennels and runs be located 100 feet setback from any adjoining property line to submit a conditional use application for a commercial kennel. Present use is dog training and dog daycare. Proposed use is same with a commercial kennel. It's in the Levy Court District 6 for Mr. Hertz. Located on the east side of Hopewell Drive, approximately 1,767 feet south of Underwoods Corner Road, west of Kenton. Here you will see the exhibit showing the variance from the requirement that all kennels and runs be located 100 feet setback from any adjoining property line. The one side is 26 feet, sorry, that's the north side, and the south side would be 70 feet from the property lines. The front of the property, looking down Hopewell Drive, and in the other direction. This is the proposed building to be used for the commercial kennel. Side of that building. The kind of black wrapped area going down is the runs. This is towards the rear of the property. The back of the proposed building, or subject building. The other side property line. And the aerial. So Mr. Moore, if you would like to state your full name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in, please.
My name is Thomas Moore. I live at 558 Hopewell Drive, Clayton, Delaware.
Mr. Moore, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
You might want to pull that mic a little closer, please.
Okay. As you probably already know, I've turned in a whole lot of documents with this, so I don't think we need to go through every one of them. I just want to hit a couple of high points, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Before you get too far into this, I mean, we do all have the packets, but the last time there were members present tonight who would benefit from your full testimony, and And obviously, I mostly do not have an interest in listening to it all again, but
Right.
I also want you to know we have members who have never heard your testimony.
Okay.
So maybe there's a more brief version of it. And the other thing is we did have many phone calls, people testifying on your behalf. And as we got ready for this tonight, you know, we had all those things in our packet. And I believe a lot of people who signed these petitions were some of the, or maybe even the majority of the people who called to give you a hearty reference. So I just want to say that. But at any rate, please go ahead. I just don't want to get into 2 hours.
I did tell a lot of them that they have the minutes from last time that we did have a lot of support, and I didn't want to make all those people take another night out of their life to come here. So, but one of the points that's been brought up is that it's going to directly affect the immediate neighbors. Okay, again, in your packets, I have 5 immediate neighbors, one to the left, one to the right, 3 across the street. And all 5 of them have given you letters saying they're okay with what I want to do and how I want to do it. They have no objection to it. And as Ms. Denny mentioned, I have probably over 150 signatures in what I consider to be the community is Kent County at large, because anybody from anywhere in the county can come to my business. So we went to a lot of different places and asked people would boarding benefit the community, and like I said, we have over 150 signatures of people who say yes, they need it, they want it, there aren't enough. There was an objection brought up about the increase of traffic. Okay, what I want to do is not to change anything I'm doing now. My daily business, training, and daycare is not going to change. The only thing I'm trying to do is add the service of overnight, having dogs spend the night, which, if you think about it, means they'll drop the dog off one day and they won't pick it up for days later, which actually may not decrease traffic, but it's surely not going to increase it. We have a training program where they drop the dog off in the morning, pick it up in the evening, and that goes on until the training's done. If I can offer those people that the dog stays, they'll drop it off on day 1, they'll pick it up on day 6. Again, cutting down on traffic, okay? Noise, that's obviously a big one. Nobody wants to listen to barking dogs at 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't either. And again, we've been doing this for 14 months now where we are during the day, not had one single complaint about barking dogs. We've had no complaints about traffic. We've had no complaints about anything whatsoever. I've also put in the packet self-imposed conditions. I'm building 2 insulated soundproof rooms inside the building you just saw, the big building. I think there's pictures. I've gotten one almost done and started the other one. So the dogs overnight will be inside, okay? I've put a time of 9:30 at night. All the dogs are in, and they don't come out till 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. So I've done everything I can to cut down on the noise. And again, I'm not going to put up with a dog barking at 1 o'clock in the morning because I need to sleep too. There was one other objection that we did have from a gentleman down the street, and I have addressed all of his issues to the best of my ability. Do you have any questions for me?
Anybody have any questions?
Sir, you have, I think, demonstrated to everybody's satisfaction that there's a tremendous amount of demand for overnight boarding of dogs.
In here somewhere, there's over 10,000 dogs in Kent County licensed. And as we all know, not everybody licenses their dog. But going off that 10,000, if I'm not mistaken, we figured out that there's not even 150 kennels, and by that I mean single kennels, in the county. So if you've got 10,000 dogs and somebody looking to keep their dog overnight, there isn't enough room.
So what kind of a dent are you going to make in that demand with the number of runs you're proposing to construct?
I'm going to limit myself to 10 dogs. I'm not going to make a big dent in that because my main thing is for the training aspect where they can drop their dog off for 2-3 weeks of intensive training. We've got a lot of dogs that we've done that have issues. We've saved a lot of dogs from not going under the needle. This gives us another service to be able to keep the dog and do intensive training with it for a long period of time. My daycare clients have said, hey, I got to go away for the weekend. Can you watch them over the weekend? So I'm going to service mainly the 150 daycare clients I have now and then open it up to more training possibilities. But putting a dent in the 10,000 dogs, that's going to take a lot more than me.
Right. So if this variance is approved, you're still going to be fielding requests to board dogs that you can't board because you won't have room.
Correct.
So you're not going to come back and ask for another variance and go through this lovely experience again?
I don't have the room or the patience to do that.
But there's a huge demand for that, though, right?
There is. And if I hadn't already purchased this and invested $600,000 into where I am, I would be looking for someplace else to do it on a larger scale. But this property's not going to allow that, and I don't want to do it. And I don't think my daughter wants that big of a headache. And that's who's getting it. So and that's why.
And your house is on this parcel, is that right?
Yes, I live there.
It's right there, served by that driveway, is that right?
Yeah.
Very good, okay.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, so thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this application? And ma'am, if you could please state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in.
Danielle Summers, 19 Fraser Street, Kenton, Delaware.
Ms. Summers, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. I'm not going to get as long-winded as last time. I do want to bring up something that hasn't been brought up and wasn't really submitted. In our packets that allow dogs to stay during the day with us, it specifically states that due to local regulations, if your dog barks uncontrollably, efforts will be used to curb this behavior. If exhausted, your dog will not be allowed to attend daycare. So I just wanted to put that in there, that we do take every effort for the noise and tell our clients in advance. They sign this packet, they are aware of it, that if your dog is uncontrollably barking, we will have to bring it inside and you will have to come pick it up. It's a part of our procedures. It has unfortunately happened to not many dogs, luckily, but most of the time we curb our behavior. That's a part of our training process as well. But they are aware of the noise regulations and our neighbors that they will not be permitted at our facility.
Does anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this application?
If there's anyone joining us online that would like to speak in favor of this application, please indicate by raising electronic hands at this time. See no hands raised online.
Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition of this application?
Similarly, if you would like to speak in opposition of this application and you're joining us online, please indicate by raising your electronic hand. Still no hands raised online.
Thank you. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing.
I just wanted to make a statement before we close.
Yes, ma'am.
And that statement is, we still have in our packet a letter of objection to this from Mr. Rodriguez, who appeared at the last meeting. And I don't need to go into detail, but I just want, for the record, as a matter of housekeeping, to say we still have within, in front of us, a packet of objection from someone Thanks.
Thank you. That closes the public hearing for application A-23-10. Next, we have application A-23-11 for Chick. The applicant is Sam Chick. The owner is Frank Chick, trustee, and Linda L. Chick, trustee. Present zoning district is BG, Business General. The proposed variance is variance from the requirement that automobile sales is conducted at least 20 feet from any adjacent property line. Each off-street parking area shall be set back no less than 25 feet from the front property line. 10 feet of the 25 feet front parking setback shall be planted with a minimum of 1 tree per each 30 linear feet, plus additional underplanting of shrubs or a wall or fence. From the required 15-foot planted screening buffer within the front setback, abutting a major roadway, and from the minimum parking space requirement to submit a conditional use site plan application. Present use is retail and auto sales and repair. Proposed use is same with warehouse and e-commerce. Levy Court District 6 for Mr. Hertz, located on the east side of South DuPont Highway, approximately 0.19 south of the intersection of Corn Crib Road and South DuPont Highway, south of Harrington. Here you will see the exhibit for the variance from the requirement that automobile sales is conducted at least 20 feet from any adjacent property line, and each off-street parking area shall be set back no less than 25 feet from the front property line. The green area that you'll see on the exhibit is the subject area that they're asking for the variances from. Here you will see the variance from the required 10-foot of the 25-foot front parking setback shall be planted with a minimum of 1 tree per each 30 linear feet, plus additional underplanting of shrubs or a wall or fence, and from the required 15-foot planted screening buffer within the front setback abutting a major roadway. In green, you will see the area of the 10-foot of the 25-foot front parking with the trees, and the red is the 15-foot planted screening buffer needs to be within that front setback, which is 75 feet abutting a major roadway. They are also asking for a variance from the required parking spaces of 193. They are proposing 122 parking spaces. This is looking down the front property line of the subject property. You will see here that the asphalt exists just about right at the front property line. Looking down the highway, again down the other direction. This is just looking at some vehicles throughout the property, the parking on the north side, and the aerial. Sir, if you would like to state your name and address and allow our attorney to swear you in.
Certainly. My name is Bob Palmer from Beacon Engineering. Address is 23318 Cedar Lane, Georgetown, Delaware, on behalf of the applicant.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. If I may also swear in Mr. Chick, what I'd
We do
like...
one per... We'll,
Okay.
we'll hear from one person at a time. Mr. Chick, we're happy to hear what he has to say
Sure.
when it's his turn.
Sure. I was hoping he would give the give an introduction for the overall project, because one of the reasons why we're before you this evening is because we're seeking conditional use to support an expansion of their warehousing and e-commerce business. And so these variances are sort of part of that. But
If you would like him to be heard first, we can swear him and hear from him first, if that works better.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Hey, Sam Chick, 646 Killens Pond Road, Harrington, Delaware, 19952.
Mr. Chick, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you, honorable members, for allowing us to request these variances today. So I'm here on behalf of my family and my family business. This is in regards to these variances come up in regards to a site plan we're submitting to expand our business and build a 60,000 square foot state-of-the-art distribution center for our saddlery company. We have been in Delaware a long time. We're 5th, 6th, and 7th generation horsemen, and we're continuing the tradition now. The variances, the first 4 variances are basically reference an area that we've used for sales for a long time since the property was purchased by my parents, Frank and Linda Chick, in 1979. We've used this area to sell vehicles, tractors, farm equipment, trailers, all kinds of merchandise, tent sales. And the last variance is about parking for our the business operations. So thank you very much for your time. I'll allow Mr. Palmer to take over. And if I can come up at the end, if there are any more questions, I'd be happy to. Thank you.
At this time, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Chick? Because as you know, we rarely have somebody come back twice, so.
I noticed you said family business. Is this like a national chain, or is it primarily just located here in Harrington?
It's located in Harrington, but we're a national company. For the saddlery company, we're top 10 in the U.S.
And if you're not granted the variances, do you think this would be like a financial hardship on your
for the sales? It'll cause for the local sales, it's going to cause a big hardship. This area, it's right on Route 13. This is where we sell automobiles. It's, you have lots of traffic going up and down the road every day. This is the primary form of advertising, so people can see the cars. They're out there. The variances are for the parking display area. Again, this is a spot since we've owned the property in 1979, have used to display merchandise, everything from cars to tractors to trailers. And the other variances we're requesting are about planting a screening buffer, which would, you have to be able to see the cars from the road. So if you put trees and shrubs in front of them, it's really going to take away from the sales. It's going to make it very difficult. It's going to be a big detraction from our business. Nothing that we're asking for is anything different than most of the other car dealers in the county are doing. We have some exhibits later in the presentation that will show that and that are in your packets you can look at. We're not asking for anything special. It's business as due course.
Have you negative comments from neighbors?
No, there haven't been any negative comments. It's a business area up and down the highway here. It's all business. There's no residences. It's business up and down. It's business across the street. And this project has been if there were objections, they would have come up. I rezoned this property with the site plan I think we got it through, in December 21 is when the rezoning happened. So it's been from then until now, there have been no objections.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify that to the south of you is a concrete plant, correct?
Yes, sir.
Atlantic Concrete, correct?
That's correct.
And to the north of you was a former mobile home sales place, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, so you have multiple businesses on this site, correct?
Yeah, that's correct, sir.
And how long have you been doing auto sales?
We've been doing the auto sales in various forms since inception, putting cars out there, trucks, farm equipment, trailers. One of my brothers really picked that up, and he's been doing that since 2007 or 2008, and he really has grown that aspect. But we've been selling vehicles in various forms since the inception there.
So all these variances are come to fruition because of the new building that you got.
Yeah, that's correct. So we're expanding the saddlery, and it's basically building a 60,000 square foot state-of-the-art warehouse. That's the part that I'm in, and it is because of that. Now have run into some other issues here because we're submitting a new site plan. So now there's other things that have come up.
What is the speed limit in front of there? Is it 35, 40?
No, it's 55 here and 50. Yeah, it dropped. I think right before our property, it drops to 50. So maybe somewhere in front of Atlantic Concrete, it drops down to 50.
And Mr. Townsend, did you have?
We could ask about the demands on parking, the nature of your particular business, and why you don't need to offer all the parking that is required by the code.
Yeah, I would be happy to. So we are, right now, we have more than enough parking. The new warehouse that we're building, there's going to be a lot of automation in it. In fact, after it's built, I invite anybody who wants to come take a tour, please come look. We're going to have some really cool stuff in there. But it's not going to increase the amount of staff that we have on site. So we're not going to get rid of anybody, but we expect to be able to do 50 to 100% more orders out the door with our existing staff, which is a big reason of doing this. It's, in this day and age, it really is, you have to be on the cutting edge if you want to compete. I believe that part of our reasoning here is that when the code, I think it's 1,000, one parking spot per 1,000 square feet or something like that, that's an old school model for warehousing. We have, for us, we don't have that, we don't meet that right now. There's USA Fulfillment, which is just in Cheswold. So they're a fulfillment company, very similar to what we do, not salary products, but the same idea, e-commerce. They have a 90,000 square foot building, and they have 35 employees there. So you can see with automation, it makes a big difference. There's a huge difference from what happens now from warehousing and distribution 40 years ago.
Anybody else?
Yeah, just touch base on the any hardship there is for not getting these variances granted.
The hardship, well, depends on the variance. So all the variances about the front would cause a big hardship on the auto sales. It would obscure the vehicles. We won't be able to put the vehicles where we need them so people can see them. It'll also limit our available area of being able to display vehicles and have vehicles on the grounds. So it's a big hardship for the auto sales business, both in terms of visibility and in terms of inventory on the lot. As far as the parking, it's a hardship. The more parking we have, the less space we're going to have to be able to build warehousing. So we have in our plan a future expansion of another 40,000 square feet. Whether it ever materializes or not, hopefully, we'll see. But business goes well. But if we're required to put more parking, that's less space that we have to do other things. And then, of course, there's the economic cost of putting parking in, which is everything has a cost to it. So we're very cost conscious. Every dollar that we save in one area is another dollar we can invest elsewhere in the business to grow it and prosper.
In respect to the existing businesses and buildings that are currently on the property, where will the e-commerce locations be?
So we'll have some exhibits later that'll show it. So we have existing. Yeah, if you go back to the last overhead, I can show you. So you see up front the building on the westmost side up front.
Sorry, Mr. Chick, you can point on that screen.
Oh, okay. Oh, how about that? Okay, so this is the retail store. This is retail up here. Everything back here, this is all e-commerce. Okay, so it's about 47,000. Everything altogether is 47,000 square foot. The building up front is 7,500 square foot. So we've got about 40,000 square foot we use for e-commerce right now. The problem with that, it doesn't sound like a huge difference going from 40,000 to 60,000, but it is. That 40,000 square foot was built over 50 years, and I think there's 4 or 5 separate buildings there that have all been combined over the years. Lots of dead ends, very inefficient. We'll be able to reduce the amount of steps somebody has to take to fulfill an order, by at least 2/3. So it's going to make a really big difference for us. The new building is going to go, if you look on the south side, basically that stand of trees there is where the new building is going to go.
Can you point on that just
Oh, yeah,
for...
I'm sorry. Yeah. So kind of this footprint right here. So we'll have some exhibits later that'll show it.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so this is probably a time for me to, I'm certainly going to listen, and I am not going to recuse myself because actually I've never met you before. But, for many years ago in my younger days, I did a lot. I built playgrounds and did lots of things within Kent County. Volunteer, get groups out and fill in, and which required a lot of fundraising. And I can tell you, the Chick family, Linda Chick, never ever turned us down. And if we were running short, always would stroke a check there. So when I read this at home, I thought, oh, you're going to have to recuse from this, but I don't know you. But I do have one question. The cars that we see parked up against the roadway, which obviously is where people tend to want to sell cars. When I see in that last photo that little driveway, can we go back to that photo? The little drive, back. The area where I guess it's ingress from. No, yeah, see this here. See, I see where the ingress comes in, and in and out there. That little swirl. If we were to say you had to move those cars back, would there still be room for that drive aisle through there?
I don't know. I mean, if you look on, I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, we'd have to play around with it, but it's, we're working with what we have, and we're working with, the site as we've done it for years now.
So if we made you move all that back, that would be
that would be a big hardship for us.
Okay. Anybody else?
Real quick, that same area she's talking about, if memory serves me right, those cars, are they single stacked or double stacked there?
They are double, the area in question, they're double stacked there. So I think, yeah.
Anybody else?
They're double stacked, but it's only the front row that's in the area in question.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening again, Bob Palmer for the applicant. I'm acknowledging my swearing in from a minute ago. Thank you for allowing Mr. Chick to speak ahead of me. I think giving perspective to what it is that the Chick family is trying to do, I think is important to the conversation. Could we use the beacon presentation that I submitted? So good evening, everyone. This first slide just lists the 5 variances that we're requesting be granted this evening. I'm not going to read through them because I understand they're all in your packet. The first 2 variances deal with the auto sales and parking in the front yard setback. Variances 3 and 4 deal with the landscape buffer, screening, and whatnot, and then the fifth variance is the request in parking reduction. On this slide, you can see. Sorry, I'm trying to look here and look there at the same time. On this slide, you can see that in red we have a number of dimensions, and this goes into the exceptional practical difficulty and the uniqueness of the property. What I'll do through my presentation is I'll speak to the geopolitical lines of right-of-ways and property lines and setbacks and things, and then later on in my presentation you'll see where I speak to just physical spacing and whatnot from various features such as the roadway, travelways, shoulders, that sort of thing. But in this exhibit, you'll see that the right-of-way of Route 13 at this location is 160 feet wide. And the northbound lane, which runs in front of the Chick's saddlery, the center line of those two lanes is 56 feet from the edge of the right-of-way. And that happens to be 56 feet from where the area that's being currently used for vehicle inventory. Also on this, next slide. This slide is an example of an administrative site plan that was approved a number of years ago. It actually was before the RPC staff a couple of times. It's owned by Sipples Auto Sales, I think they're called, and Sipples Used Cars, and Atlantic Auto Brokers is currently occupying the property, and that was the basis for this particular site plan. And though it was approved administratively, it was still subject to the 20-foot setback and 25-foot setback requirements that are the subject of our variance. And so this property is just north of Harrington, but unlike the Chick property, it's on the southbound side of the highway. Route 13 in this location, the right-of-way is 180 feet wide. And it just so happens that because the roadway is not centered within the right-of-way, that this property, while meeting the 25-foot front yard setback to parking is met, the parking still remains 55 feet from the center line of the roadway. So the geopolitical lines that were drawn to create the right-of-way and the properties create this adverse impact. We're really no closer than what other recently approved used car lots are located to the right-of-way. So from a physical distance, we're actually a foot farther from the center line of the nearest part of the roadway. In the staff response, there was some commentary about safety, which we take very seriously. Safety of the traveling public, safety of customers entering and leaving the sites that we design. We take that very seriously. And we worked, before we submitted our site plans for review, we worked with DelDOT to ensure that our philosophies were in harmony with their standards. And in particular, staff commented that the storage of vehicles, the display of vehicles close to the roadway would block visibility and would be a danger to errant vehicles running off the highway. You'll see in this exhibit that there's a black line with a C with the abbreviation CZ, and then there's a red line with that same abbreviation. And CZ stands for clear zone, and it comes from standards that are based on the design speed of the roadway and the number of vehicles that travel along that roadway. And so with Route 13, we're 14,000 or so average daily trips. And that triggers the largest clear zone for measurement of safety. This clear zone has been determined by study and analysis of crash records over a very long time, that this clear zone is a location where no physical obstructions should be situated, because an errant vehicle, in theory, could recover within that clear zone. And so for our project, our clear zone is 18 feet from the edge of the outside travel lane, and you can see that runs just along the existing curb, right there. Owing to different site configurations and such, the maximum width that the clear zone would be 32 feet, and that's what this red line represents. DelDOT has approved the 18-foot dimension. The 32 feet is just a sort of a belt and suspenders. We're well away from what the clear zone is or what it could be, with the distance from to the right of way and to where the outside vehicle storage is proposed. Site visibility. I know a number of other applicants have spoken about site triangles and whatnot this evening, so I won't belabor what they are and how they work and whatnot, but this green triangle represents the clear zone that's been approved by DelDOT for the existing entrances that we're proposing to reuse. And as you can see, again, the closest part of the site triangle is just under 27 feet to the edge of where the outside vehicle display area is. And so, we recognize and appreciate staff's concern for roadside safety, vehicular traffic, and whatnot, but we've taken that into account. So the variance, if granted, would not increase hazard to the public. I could go back a slide here. Okay, so DelDOT also offered comment on our application, and they referenced the minimum width of the right-of-way from the outside travel lane must be at least 30 feet. And beyond that, within the property, a 15-foot permanent easement would be required. At our pre-submittal meeting, and I believe Mr. Chick passed out the pre-submittal meeting minutes from our meeting with DelDOT, DelDOT agreed that no right-of-way dedication was required and no permanent easement dedication would be required because that 30 plus 15 equals 45. Our right-of-way, our front property is 45 feet from the outside edge of travel lanes, so we meet that requirement. Again, should this variance be granted, it would have no adverse impact to DelDOT.
Yes. I'm sorry, if I could just elaborate on that. So DelDOT has commented that no cars should be placed in the area, the 15-foot easement, either striped or not. So no parking can go in that 15-foot easement.
This easement would actually be in the right-of-way. There would be no easement granted here because the easement runs with that 30-foot minimum right-of-way width. So DelDOT has gone on record with us that there would be no easement, no right-of-way dedication. Where the right-of-way exists today is where it will exist with entrance permit approval, and our letter of no objection is how it was explained to us. So, with that being said, should the variance for the vehicle display area be granted, we struggle with finding locations for buffers and screening. And that's the nature of variances 3 and 4. We asked for complete relief simply because we didn't understand and we're still struggling with the definitions that are in the code. Section 205-24 talks about screening and landscaping and opaque walls or fences 3 feet in height. And the 15-foot buffer, it references a planted screening buffer. And so the closest that we could come to in the definitions for buffers were that it represents any combination of living plant material, solid fences, walls, earth berms with sufficient height above grade so as to create a substantial visual barrier. And the approval of that would be, the approval of that design would be by staff. And we were led that that sort of a buffer would be more softening, so on edges along the way, but not a complete visual barrier. The 15-foot buffer, on the other hand, we are concerned about, because that 15-foot planted screening buffer, the closest we could come to in the code was a landscape screen, which is defined as a completely planted visual barrier composed of evergreen plants and trees to form both a low-level and high-level screen. And the low-level screen is 2 feet high minimum, 5 feet apart, and the high screen is 5 feet high at planting, 10 feet apart. And we have, on our side of the road, we have utility poles with overhead power lines, and the high screening we feel would be a hardship because of the limited availability along our frontage to physically locate a 15-foot wide screen, as well as the conflict with the overhead power lines. On this exhibit, the green, what we did was we took the most recent, the last approved plan on file, and we overlaid it onto our plan. So the red lines that you see are the approved plan on file, and the gray and black lines are the site plan that we're proposing. And so the green line that you'll see is the existing parking, existing hard surface that was on that last plan. And you can see that, there's really no opportunity on this side of the property for the planting screen for the drive aisle, the loading area, and the parking. And then there's a small place here for maybe some low-growth shrubs. There's a spot on either side of the entrance for some low-growth shrubs, some softening. So I think we would be, we would definitely be willing to reduce the impact of the variance with some low-growth plantings where they make sense, so that they didn't obstruct the view from the highway. We do have trees between us and Atlantic Concrete that limit our visibility for northbound traffic. The magenta line represents the edge of the 75-foot buffer. And you can see the existing saddlery shop is a legal non-conforming building, so there's really no place on this side for the screening buffer. And then over on this side, that was approved for vehicle storage that was outside of the 25-foot setback. Let's see. And then on to the parking. This gives you a little bit better. Sam was referencing that we had other exhibits to demonstrate the site plan. And so you can see this is the existing saddlery, and this is the e-commerce and warehousing that's currently taking place on the property. And so the operations in these two buildings would be moved over to the new 60,000 square foot facility. These two buildings would still remain storage, but they would be used for other types of storage as it relates to the packing and loading and overall operations at the facility. For the retail parking, we would be required to have 62 spaces, and we're proposing to maintain that load. For the auto sales, 5 spaces for employees and customers is required, and again, we're planning to maintain that level. Where we ran into trouble, or where we're really asking for the variance, is not from those uses, but more from the warehouse, the distribution facility. As Mr. Chick testified, the parking space requirement at 1 per 1,000 works out to be 126 parking spaces. In the approved plan on file for the existing facility, I think there's only 93, there's 89 parking spaces that are approved that are about the property that were shown on the aerials a minute ago. And so with the staffing loads that operate the warehousing facility today, we're running at about 52 employees all in for the warehousing, and that per code would wind up being only a need for only 26 parking spaces. And because most of the employees drive singly, there's not a lot of carpooling. We feel that the minimum code requirement of 26 would not be adequate for our use. So rather than moving to a minimum parking code based on employee load of 93, we've looked at it as a holistic where all of the employees drive in separately, which that's how we got to the 122. So we're not asking for a complete reduction of the parking. We're trying to meet in the middle. And this plan that we have shown, it does comply with that and also provides the space for the vehicle storage and such for the automotive use. And that concludes my presentation.
Anybody have questions?
Yeah, just could you touch base on the impact moving that auto sales back to the 20-foot setback line? How does that impact the site circulation? Any other impacts that may have?
Sure. Good question. If this vehicle storage were moved back to the single stacked area, we would still have to maintain the site circulation through the property because of the design vehicles that we're using, as well as provide fire access and fire lanes for life safety. Those parking spaces that the chicks have been using, unknowingly for so many years, they, as I said earlier, they really represent the, kind of the going distance from the travelway that most of the approved uses, whether they were approved because their parking was already there before the code was rewritten, or they were, administratively granted, generally parking, the vehicle storage is in the 50 to 60 feet away from the center of the travelway. By moving back to the 25-foot setback, that puts us 80 feet from the roadway. Given the buffer that runs along the edge of the property and the wooded space between on the Atlantic Concrete property, it would limit our northbound visibility, and that additional 25 feet would make it increasingly more difficult to see the cars at the 55 miles per hour that most vehicles probably pass the property. I didn't go through in my presentation, but Mr. Chick also gave into the record. He went about the county and found a number of locations where, whether legally, illegally, administratively allowed to move forward because, like I said, the parking existed before the 1991 rewrite of the code, and it was allowed to remain. Generally, those parking spaces, those vehicle storage areas, all are, as I said, in the 50 to 70, 65 feet from the center of the travelway. And I'd be happy to go through that if you'd like, but for the sake of time, I figured you folks could see it.
Anybody else with questions?
I have a question just for clarification on page 5. Under the DelDOT comments, circle number 2 says beyond the required right-of-way, a 15-foot permanent easement is required. Mr. Chick's gentleman is stating that DelDOT has said that we're not requiring that now, and we're saying, based on the paperwork that's been submitted, that DelDOT is requiring it. I just need clarification as to whether or not DelDOT's requiring that.
Yes, sir. I guess at this point, and looking at Ms. Fenske's face with my testimony, I'm wondering if there isn't a disconnect between what DelDOT told us back in October when we met with them and when they saw this application come before them. We've included a copy of the pre-bid meeting minutes in the record, and I apologize, I don't have a copy in front of me, but one of the bullet points of the discussion was affirmation that no right-of-way dedication and no permanent easement will be required. So we have that. Thank you, Sam. It's actually bullet number 9 on page 3 of 4 of the meeting minutes, where Mr. Schwartz, our subdivision plan reviewer, confirmed that no right-of-way or permanent easement dedication is required. The engineer will verify the right-of-way and outside edge of travel lane are parallel. Additional detail will be provided on the record plan to document site conditions, and we have done that. Our record plan is before DelDOT now, and we expect comments by the end of this month.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this application?
We have no members from the public participating online at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition of this application? Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing for application A-23-11.
Okay, so at that point, we were calling to close the public hearing. And I'm going to ask the panel here if anybody would like a quick break, or you want to just keep on going. Okay. All right, so we're just going to, at this point, call to order the business meeting. And I know we didn't get up and leave, but I think for as a matter of housekeeping, we need to call the roll again. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Jones?
I'm sorry I missed that.
Are you present?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Ms. Hudson?
Here.
Mr. Carter?
Here.
Mr. Jenkins?
Here.
Mr. Cusick?
Here.
And Ms. Denny?
Here.
Thank you. That's still 6 present.
Thank you. We did election of officers last time. Yes, no? I thought we did.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. That's just a leftover from last month. So if we can make an amendment to remove that.
So, unfortunately, I'm still it. Tag, you're it. Okay. All right. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting. And not everybody was present. 2 meetings ago, actually. We have to do February. So I'm looking for approval of minutes from the February meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the Board of Adjustment meeting for February 16th, 2023.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Do you think, under the circumstances, we need to line item that?
So I think it's fair to say for the record that Mr. Carter wasn't with us on that evening, and neither were you, Brian. You recused yourself from the proceedings. Is that right? So we're looking at 4 positive votes, I presume, from the remaining 4 members of the Board of Adjustment. Is that not correct?
We would need 4, yes.
Mm-hmm. And is that what we just got? Did we call the question?
We got 4.
Okay. And no one was opposed?
Anyone opposed? We didn't ask that, but.
Okay, so the motion to approve the minutes carries.
Approve the minutes from the February business meeting. So now I'm looking for a motion for approval of the March minutes from March 16th, 2023.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the Board of Adjustment meeting for March 16th, 2023.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Ms. Hudson was not here, and you weren't here, and we have a new member so we don't have enough people here to approve that, but I'm not certain that we will in the future.
The March 16th minutes? Yeah.
Yes.
So I think just for the benefit of the organization that Mr. Carter perhaps could vote in favor of approving those minutes, just so we could get business done. Otherwise, we're hamstrung.
Okay, so
An aye from Mr. Carter.
we get an aye from Mr. Okay, so having the appropriate amount of positive ayes, the minutes from the March 16th, 2023 meeting are hereby approved. Next item of business is notice of decisions, and those notices are, I've got it on a piece of paper here somewhere.
We're going to take them one at a time, though, for the same reasons.
Yes, okay. So we have one for February, which would be A2228.
I'll make a motion for approval of the notice of decision for the application A22-28 for the February 16th, 2023 meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
One recused, one absent.
And the not voting, right.
Or not.
We have a not voting and a recusal.
Okay, so Mr. Carter's going to say A. Aye. No, we have four. Okay. Okay, we have the necessary amount. So having received necessary positive votes, the notice of decision for A2228 is hereby approved. So now we're going to go down March, and we'll do the notices of decision one at a time. That's your preference, Mr. Townsend?
No, we can group them.
As a whole? Okay, we'll do the March as a whole, and they are A2301, A2302, A2304, A2305, and A2306. Need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the notices of decision for the March 16th, 2023 meeting for application A23-1, -2, -4, -5, and -6.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Absent.
Any nays? And we have a new member. Okay. Four. We have four. Yes. Having received the necessary amount of positive votes, March notices of decisions as stated are hereby approved. So at this point, we have no old business, and so we can begin with the new business, and let's just, as we normally would do, go with the people who remain first.
Yes, ma'am. So we'll do application A-23-07 for Ridge Realty Properties LLC. And again, they were requesting the variances from the minimum parking space requirements for retail use and from the required 75-foot front setback on a major roadway. They were requesting, the required spaces were 65, and they were requesting 50 total spaces. And the front setback, they were asking for 69.5-foot front setback, with the required being 75.
I would be recused myself from this application.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we have, we're on A2303, right? 07. Oh. Oh, okay. Got doing my paperwork here and lost track. Okay. So while I'm finding my paperwork, do we have any comments, discussion?
Well, I think this one's a lot like the past one that we saw before. The area needs the local produce, the area. It's good to see that companies are coming in and using already vacant lots that are there, so it alleviates the eyesore of an empty lot sitting there.
I certainly agree. And my feelings about that are with the reason, some part of this comes about because of all the stores tend to be alike, but in the newer ones, they're adding fresh food, fresh produce, and things that I think add to people's health. And I just think generally, it's especially, we're post-COVID, so I think we have a better understanding about when you can't get out, when you can't get to things. And I think my feelings are that I don't see any harm in any of this, and I think it's a really good use for the property. And again, I think it's enhanced by the fact that we will have that these people will be able to get fresh produce and not have to drive into a market, a bigger like grocery store to do that.
So the encroachment on that 75-foot front setback is, I think, about 5.5 feet. Is that significant enough to outweigh the benefits?
Well, if they have to rearrange the area for the store to fit, if I'm not mistaken, it has to be this footprint for ADA, for participants with ADA and disabilities to be able to maneuver around. Then they would put the parking in the back. That would negatively affect the neighboring properties in the back. So I think the 5-foot setback outweighs bothering the neighbors towards the back, but that's just my opinion.
I think there was a comment made by Mr. Street that the Del Dot would be impacted at the 105-foot level. Was that, did anyone else have that same note or no?
I didn't see that.
You didn't? Maybe I picked that up from.
I mean, unless the planners saw something I missed. I mean, I go over these, but.
I think he was referencing that Del Dot would be the neighbor to the front setback.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more discussion, or I would love to hear a motion.
Based on the testimony tonight, I'd like to make a motion that we approve A2307 as requested.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
So
actually, there's two items. Mm-hmm. So are we
doing the motion you could proceed on two, but I just want to make sure everybody knows what they're voting on.
I'll amend my motion to include both the requested variances for the reduction in parking spaces and the reduction in setback.
I second.
So I would remind the members to give the reasons for both in the event that they vote in favor or against the motion.
And we are going to, obviously, because of the motion, vote on them simultaneously there. So we have a motion and a second.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Jones?
I agree with the motion. given the testimony that was presented by Mr. Street, and also knowing that area, even though that road's considered to be a major highway, it's really, in my opinion, a frontage road. So, given a reduced speed limit, I agree with the motion. And I agree as recommended by the staff and also on the motion to approve that, to agree to that.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote in support of application A23-07 for two reasons. First, the staff is in support of the parking space reduction. And we've also received extensive information from the corporation on their marketing research in that regard. And the other reason, the encroachment for the actual physical structure footprint of that building is a minimal encroachment. You're talking about 5.5 feet, not significant enough to me.
Thank you. Ms. Hudson?
I vote to approve the variance from the minimum parking space requirement from 64 spaces to the 50 parking spaces. I also vote for approve the other variance from the front setback from 75 feet to the 69.5. Based off the public testimony that we heard tonight, and I believe that removing these restrictions does not seriously negatively affect the neighboring properties, and I also believe that this is in characteristics for the surrounding area.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
Yes, I vote in favor for my motion. Reasons given.
Thank you. Ms. Denny?
I'm going to vote yes. Number one, I believe that this would be an added enhancement to this area, and as these businesses tend to be in most cases, I don't want to set a precedence. And also, I think that having it a little larger in order to accommodate the fresh produce is a huge bonus to the local people. Sometimes you think, well, we don't need it, and right now we might not need it with people with gardens and all, but all winter long, sometimes, they're fortunate to have it close by and not have to drive a distance to have it. And I agree that as far as the parking, testimony tonight is that it's really not necessary because of the history of the nature of this particular business doesn't lend itself to, it's not like a supermarket, so we don't need them all. So therefore, not setting a precedence, I vote yes.
Thank you, ma'am. That's 5 in favor of the motion.
Okay, so we have 5 yeas, no nays, and application A2307 is hereby approved.
Moving right along, next we have application A-23-08. That's for the New Birth Church of God. They are asking for a variance from the 25% expansion of a non-conforming use to construct a 24 by 21 foot garage.
Okay, so do we have any thoughts, any discussion?
Yes, I have a comment. I just would like to go on record as saying that I find their requests pretty consistent with what they currently do. They just have needs for additional storage, and it's consistent, I think, with their overall vision and plan.
I also want to point out that adding the garage does not affect neighboring properties negatively, and it could actually bring up the property value of the neighbors.
And I'm just going to say I agree with both of your remarks. I absolutely cannot see any negative impact by approving this, and I really, again, all they're asking to do is provide a storage space for a van, the church van, as well as perhaps, as he stated, extra chairs and things that they may need to store for use later. So I agree with those comments. So
I'll make a motion to approve application A23-08 per staff recommendation.
I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion and a second. When you're ready, would you call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Hudson?
I vote to approve based off the public testimony that we heard tonight and for the staff recommendation. I believe that this is a use in the character of the surrounding area and doesn't negatively affect neighboring properties.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
I'll vote yes for the motion based on the evidence that was presented tonight and also the staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
I'll vote yes on the motion based on the staff recommendation and the testimony tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote in support of application A23-08 for the following reason. It does not, the extension or enlargement does not exceed 25% of the gross square footage in use at the time of the creation of the nonconformity of this building.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes per my motion.
Thank you. Ms. Denny?
I'm going to vote yes. I think if we were to deny this, we would create a difficulty. This church is again, they need a place to park their bus. They need a place to store some extra equipment. They have two very small sheds there, but which couldn't possibly accommodate either of those things. And so I'm voting yes. And again, for this particular property, with no desire to set precedents.
Thank you, ma'am. That's 6 in favor of the motion.
Having received unanimous positive votes, application A2308 is hereby approved.
Thank you. And moving right along, we have application A-23-09. The applicant for the pool doctor, the owner is Sally and Alfred James Edwards Jr. The proposed variance is from the 23% maximum impervious surface coverage to install an in-ground pool with concrete surround. And again, the existing impervious area is 5,886 square feet, being 27.02%. The proposed total impervious coverage would create 6,177 square feet, being 28.36%. The permitted is 23%.
Okay, so open for comments or discussion, but I just want to remind you that we have an existing impervious soil issue that we need to address as well. And then, of course, we have the new. And that said, I'm going to make a comment. In testimony tonight, we realized that there's no issues with water. There's actually a drainage.
There's two
drainage areas, and the biggest reason I would absolutely step aside and make this, because I like to stick to the code whenever possible, is that the difference between an impervious material around the edge of this pool is huge, because we're looking at a difference of like 4,074 and 13,000, and I think that as testimony from Mr. Edwards, I certainly understand that would create an exceptional practical difficulty. The pool, the use of the pool is really for health reasons, and at this day and age, we're just coming off COVID. There's a lot of people who really do not want to go to the Y or other places like that to use pools. And again, I don't think that should be a precedence-setting excuse or reason, but I think that this is a small request that they're making.
I'll make a motion to approve application A23-09 to grant them the impervious coverage of 28.36%. Per the testimony, stated that there's no drainage issues on the site, and everything drains back to the swale in the back there, and has some stormwater management piping and some catch basins back there, and no impact on the neighboring properties that I see. And then also, I believe it's a normal improvement to the property that the resident is granted.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion and almost 2 seconds on both. So when you're ready, call the roll.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Jones?
I'm going to vote in favor of the motion based on the testimony that was given. And also, making note that there are drainage structures to the rear of the property. I make a motion, or I agree with the motion.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote in support of application A23-09 for 2 reasons. First, the effort to relieve any excess water off the property by creating that drainage system, and the fact that these individuals are at a point in their life where the quality of their life can be enhanced by allowing this.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
I vote yes for the application based on the testimony tonight and the reasons given in the motion.
Thank you. Ms. Hudson?
I vote yes to the motion based off the public testimony that we heard tonight, and based off that this property is really unique with having 2 drainage systems on the property, and I believe that the neighboring properties will not be negatively affected by it.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes for my motion.
Thank you. Ms. Denny?
I'm going to vote yes. I think if we were to deny this, it would create a practical difficulty for these homeowners. And if I guess I should reword that. If we were to insist on an impervious material, it would cause a hardship for these homeowners. And I also feel as though that this is an exceptional, this property is different than others in that it does have 2 drainage areas at the back of the property. And so the fact that there is already existing a place for runoff, is solidifies my yes.
Thank you, ma'am. That's 6 in favor of the application, or of the motion.
Having received 6 positive votes, application A2309 is hereby approved.
Okay. Next is application A-23-10. It's for the applicant of Training Tales LLC. They are seeking a variance from the requirement that all kennels and runs be located 100 feet setback from any adjoining property lines to submit a conditional use application for a commercial kennel. They are proposing to be 26 feet from the northern property line and 70 feet from the southern property line.
Okay, any discussion? Not everyone was here last month, but did come before us last month. So
Yes. I would just make a comment about the testimony in regards to the noise control policy. I was first hearing, I don't recall hearing that before. That does help somewhat in process, and of course I was in support of it the first time, so that additional information is encouraging though.
Anybody else?
I think this is really unique, and I like to see small family businesses prosper, and it's not like they're trying to do a commercial aspect of a PetSmart or something like that. I see 10 dogs, quiet by 9:30. The building's already there, so they're making do with a building that's there versus having to rebuild something.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second? No, we don't have a, just discussion, I'm sorry. Gosh, I want to go home. I guess at this point, unless there's more discussion, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve application A23-01 to allow the commercial kennels to be 26 feet from the northern side property line and the outdoor kennels and the runs connected to the building to be 70 feet from the southern property line. Just because the minimal impact on the neighboring properties, the need for this, the overwhelming support of the neighboring properties, and also the economic hardship to have this, to keep this business to stay competitive.
Second.
So we have a motion, a second. When you're ready, call the roll.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Hudson?
I vote to approve the motion. Based off the public testimony, I believe there is a financial hardship for family businesses to stay competitive in today's market. And I believe that adding the boarding would be beneficial to the area given the demand and the lack of boarding. And I don't believe that this removing the restriction would create a negative impact on the neighbors.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote in support of application A23-10 for two reasons. Based on the testimony previously and based on tonight's testimony, just the fact that the overnight boarding will not adversely impact in a way that it doesn't justify approving this business.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
I vote in favor based on the testimony that was given this evening. Also, echoing what Mrs. Hudson said as well. So I vote yes.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
I vote yes, favor of the motion based on the testimony tonight and the reasons given in the motion.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes for my motion.
Thank you. Ms. Denny?
I'm going to vote yes based on test, as well as the fact that during this, we have only heard one piece of objection and have been inundated with people who absolutely believe that this is a necessity. And the one letter that we received, which is still part of the file, was with regard to a disability and or at least a form of disability. And I after the last meeting, because a couple of members had mentioned to me, well, like, what about ADA? And I didn't think it had a place in that discussion. But I did call the ADA and spoke with, they don't give last names, but a Kelly there this afternoon in anticipation of tonight's meeting. And I am told that that has nothing to do with this situation, that the ADA regulations are more about employment, things like handicapped accessible facilities, and so that plays no part within what we were presented with as an application. So therefore, I vote yes. I think to deny this would and ask this business owner to move his facility and spend that kind of money would create an absolute practical difficulty for this business owner. So therefore, yes.
Thank you, ma'am. That's 6 in favor of the motion.
Having received unanimous positive votes, application A2310 is hereby approved.
Thank you. Next is application A-23-11. That's for Chick. Again, they're seeking a variance from the requirement that an automobile sales is conducted at least 20 feet from any adjacent property line. Each off-street parking area shall be set back no less than 25 feet from the front property line. 10 feet of the 25-foot front parking setback shall be planted with a minimum of 1 tree per each 30 linear feet, plus additional underplanting of shrubs or a wall or a fence. From the required 15-foot planted screening buffer within the front setback abutting a major roadway, and from the minimum parking space requirement to submit a conditional use site plan application. For the parking setbacks, for both of them, they are asking for complete relief. For the landscape, they are asking for complete relief. And for the parking, the required spaces would be 193, and they are proposing 122.
So, okay, so we have a lot before us, and I'm open for suggestions, but I'm wondering if maybe we should hear these a line item, just as a matter of housekeeping and to be certain. So, okay, and council agrees that that's what we should do. So at this point, I'm open for discussion.
I think this property is another unique situation that we see a lot in Delaware. We have another family business that's been operating since the 70s. They would have kept operating without knowing that they were in the wrong if it wasn't for the fact that they were trying to expand and try and stay competitive in today's market. I mean, I think they're doing great. They're bringing the local economy up for the area. They're trying to compete with the giant stores like Amazon. And I don't think it was anything of malice. I think they've just operated this way since the 70s, and it's never had a problem. We heard public testimony that they don't have any negative feedback, and it's in the characteristic of the surrounding area. They have the concrete plant next to them, and I think a hotel on the other side that has the cars there.
I just would like to add that I've been in Sussex County, not Kent, Sussex, for over half of my life, and the other half I've been in Kent. I've traveled that area extensively for different reasons, no more than go to the state fair each year. I remember when I think mobile homes or double wides or modulars were sold on that property. It's it's a very busy commercial zone. And if you apply common sense to the nature of what they're trying to do, some of these variances are definitely needed.
I absolutely agree with what Mr. Jenkins just said. And it feels to me like they've been there forever. And to be honest with you, again, I was hesitant. I thought, well, you know, they've been so philanthropic in this community, and I don't recall ever any problems there. And I too, you know, whether it's the fair or, you know, they're having some display for, you know, selling pools or whatever, you know, I've been there multiple times over many, many, many years. And I really believe, actually, I believe Chicks is a fixture. So I couldn't agree more.
And I do want to point out, I don't think there's a safety problem, because if I remember correctly, that Harrington cop sits like right there and makes sure everyone does the speed limit. So I want to point that one out.
And that would be so. And by the way, I appreciate the Harrington Police Department for keeping that area safe. And that is one of the many places where everybody who's from Delaware, or at least Kent County, hits the brakes, which is a good thing. So any other comments, or can we get a motion?
I'm actually looking at the map right now, and I didn't notice this before, but if you look to where they had the parking, I don't think they could actually push the parking back because they have their septic there. So even if they were denied the variance and they had to, I don't think they could do it because no one wants to pay $20,000 for a new septic. I just wanted to point that one out because I saw that.
Well, thank you for that piece of information. So I'm looking for a motion or more discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve these variances.
Do one at a time.
The one variance, yes. Just given the area and given the surrounding properties, and as Morgan said, Ms. Hudson said, with the concrete plant to the south, and you've got the former mobile home sales place to the north, and across there you got a chain link fence and Delaware State Fair. I'll make a motion to approve the variance.
I'm sorry, can you just be a little more specific as to what variance or variances?
Number one,
Yes, number one, the auto sales variance is what I'm making a motion to approve.
I second.
So we have a motion, a second. When you're ready, call the roll.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Cusick?
Yeah, I vote yes to request number one for the auto sales to be 0 foot setback. Just I think the safety, per the testimony, the site safety lines, this auto sales area doesn't have any impact on it. I think it's been in operation like this for quite a few years now, so I don't think it had any repercussion from the neighboring property. So I think the economic hardship for them to lose that part of the auto sales will be an economic impact.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
Yes, I'll vote yes for the motion. I see no negative impact based on the testimony tonight. Years of experience at DelDOT. I'll only warn the owners that somehow cars just manage to creep overnight into the right-of-way, so you need to be careful of that.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I'll vote in support of the motion for application A23-11-1, based on the fact that the testimony by the applicant seems to show that the whole notion of the clear zone, the business transactions for the auto sales, will clearly be outside of that clear zone.
Thank you. Ms. Hudson?
I vote yes per the motion. I vote based on the public testimony that we heard tonight. The store has been selling cars without problem since the 1970s. There's a financial hardship on the applicant if they have to move the line back due to having the septic being there, but also the fact that if they move the line back, then it blocks the fire, EMS, fire trucks from being able to access the current buildings and the new building.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
I'm voting yes based on my motion.
Thank you, sir. And Ms. Denny?
I'm going to vote yes. I think, again, to me, I think it's kind of, let's not try to fix what really truly isn't broken. This has been operating for some time. And I absolutely agree with and would have said it myself had Ms. Hudson not beat me to it, is that I really don't see how they can make that push back and still have what is really a passageway through for safety. So therefore, I'm voting yes.
Thank you, ma'am. That's 6 in favor of the motion.
Okay, having received unanimous positive votes, item 1 of application A 2311 is hereby approved. So now we're going to move on and address item number 2, which is off-street parking area shall be no less than 25 feet from the property line.
Make a motion. We approve the variance for each off-street parking area to be less than 25 feet from the front property line. I make this judgment based off the previous statements for the first one. This property had cars since the 1970s. There's no problem. Existing septic in the back, if they have to push it back, and beyond that. And it would be in the problematic for fire and EMS to get back if they were to have to push their line backwards. And with the financial hardship on the applicant from losing the visibility to have the cars out front.
Have a motion. We're looking for a second. A motion, a second.
Just a question. Was it the testimony that they've been selling cars there since the 70s, or was that a more recent development? Do we know?
I think the property was the 70s. The cars were, I think, maybe
2007, 2008.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they did testify that they sold tractors and other farm equipment.
Everything under the sun has been sold there, up to and including cars and antique cars, too.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second, when you're ready.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Jenkins?
I'll vote in support of application A23-11-2 based on the testimony of Mr. Palmer in relationship to all business transactions and activity that will occur in the existing zone, keeps the customers and the employees in a safe manner.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
I too vote in favor of A-23-11-2, based on the testimony that was given and based on the comments that have been made here by the board members. I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
I vote in favor of A-23-11-2 based on the testimony tonight and the motion that was made.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes to the motion. Same reasons for item 1. The economic impact to lose that visibility for the auto sales, and then also they have to push that back. It messes up the site circulation.
Thank you. Ms. Hudson?
I vote yes per my motion.
Thank you. And Ms. Denny?
I'm going to vote yes because, once again, agreeing what Ms. Hudson said, this has been going on. I mean, everything she said, it's just, it's like, don't fix what isn't broken. And again, it's rare that you ever hear me say that because I tend to be a stickler. And absolutely, this happens to address this particular property and the activities that are on it, which make it exceptional for this type of an issue or this application. So I don't want to be quoted as setting a precedent somewhere down the road.
Thank you, ma'am. That's 6 in favor of the motion.
Having received unanimous positive votes, application A2311 is hereby approved. So now we're going to address application A2311, item number 3, which is 10 feet of the 25-foot front parking setback shall be planted with a minimum of 1 tree for each 30 linear feet. I know we could combine 3 and 4, but we're so far. Okay, is everybody comfortable? Just say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
Aye.
Okay, so we're going to combine them. I'm going to go back. We have a motion. I'm losing track. We have a motion, but let's make it to include both.
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve 3 and 4 based off the public testimony that we heard tonight and my prior comments of the business has been around from the 70s. There's no problem. And I believe there's a financial hardship on the owners if they are forced to bring the area up to current code by planting the trees. But I also believe be another hardship on the owner by having the 15-foot trees planted under the power lines. And when they grow up, then you have to have them cut back down. So I believe that this is a hinder, and I believe that this property should be grandfathered. Grandfathered in. It's been that way for the 70s, and we see this a lot in the county.
Second.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes per the motion. Well, clearly, since we voted yes for approval for 1 and 2, there's really nowhere to plant anything. So there you go.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
I vote in favor of the motion based on the testimony given, and having known the area for a long, long time. And the comments made by Mrs. Hudson and the rest of the board, I have to vote yes.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote in support of application 823-11, items 3 and 4. Based on over 30 years of experience in the utility industry, planting those trees would actually create a problem that you really don't want to have, and it would be very expensive to maintain those trees over the years, just keep them clear of the right-of-way there. Between that and the plantings could actually deter, in my opinion, business because of the nature of the exposure that you want with the cars presented in the front area like they are.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
I vote in favor of the motion based on the testimony tonight, the discussion of the board, and the motion itself.
Thank you. Ms. Hudson?
I vote yes per my motion.
Thank you. Ms. Denny?
I'm going to vote yes. I absolutely believe that this property is different than many others in the county. And I think that the comments that were made about visibility for, what is for sale there, this could create a hardship for the sales. And I also think that if you're going to run off the road and hit something, better a car that could be moved backward than a tree that tends to stand still. So, therefore, I'm voting yes.
Thank you, ma'am. That's 6 in favor of the motion.
Having received unanimous positive votes, application A2311 is hereby approved.
No, we got one more.
Oh, I thought we combined them.
No, there's 5.
Sorry. We have to go back to item number 5.
I'll make a motion to approve item 5 for the reduction of the parking spaces to 122 per staff recommendation.
Second.
Motion and second when you're ready.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Hudson?
I vote yes for the variance to reduce the parking spaces from 193 to 122. Based off the public testimony that we heard tonight, I believe this is within the character of the surrounding area and will not seriously affect neighboring properties.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
I vote in favor based on the testimony and everything that we've listened to 1 through 4.
Thank you. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote in support of application A23-11-5. Based upon the generation of that number, I believe the applicant came up with that's a number that would be suitable for the employees. If each individual drove singly, they would have more than enough parking for what they need.
Thank you. Mr. Carter?
I vote yes in favor of the motion based on the testimony tonight. And I agree with the applicant that in today's world and warehousing that the parking requirements probably need to be adjusted.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote yes for my motion.
Thank you. Ms. Denny?
I'm going to vote yes. Based on the staff recommendations, but I also agree that when you, in this day and age with e-businesses and all the automation that we have, that we probably do need to, at some point, but the regional planners or the comprehensive plan might want to take a look at some of that, because it's just sign of the times. So I'm going to vote yes.
Thank you, ma'am. That's 6 in favor of the motion.
Okay, so having received unanimous positive votes on item 5, of application A2311, the application as a whole is hereby approved.
Thank you.
And last, we have application A-23-03. That's for the applicant KHOG. The owner is Hatters Hills LLC. They're seeking variances from the maximum height of 6 feet above grade for a subdivision sign, from the required front setback of 25 feet to construct 2 tower structures, and from the requirement that a fence may not exceed 4 feet in height in the front setback. They are proposing the sign to be 6 feet 8 inches above grade. The towers are proposed to be 4 feet 3 inches and 4 feet 4 inches from the front property line. And the fence would be 6'9".
So with this one, I really couldn't see an exceptional practical difficulty. To me, it kind of felt like he was just saying this is what they do, and take it or leave it, or I guess just take it. I just couldn't see the reasoning why it had to be that tall, other than they want it that tall.
Oh, it sounded like it was marketing to convince those buyers.
Well, I mean, I've seen these things in other developments that they've done, and they're very, very pretty. But I think they need to go back to the drawing board.
I agree, Mr. Carter. I have as well. Some of the examples that they pointed out as like support for their argument, I know those developments and I've seen those entrances, and they are very extensive, and they do look very nice, very appealing.
And I do want to say some of the entrances they were using for examples were under different towns that don't have to adhere to these codes. So I wanted to point that out. Or they were already grandfathered in, so I didn't see how that would cause, because they did it, they should be able to do it too. I didn't see that argument type thing there.
Well, I certainly agree, because I think, like, the one photo that they showed out at Wild Quail, that's like, yeah, or even earlier. I mean, that's like an antique, like me.
The other one where they showed the fence, that's a commercial property, so they're allowed to have, I think, a 6-foot fence on commercial properties, where residential, I think, is 4 foot. So I just wanted to point that one out too, because I think this one is residential as well, right? Is it residential or is it commercial?
This would be considered residential.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the only impact, I think, is that those tower setbacks with the stormwater management ponds. That's the only thing I could see really maybe granting approval. There's not much room to move those.
If I'm reading this correctly, DelDOT did not have any objection as far as a site review, right? As far as a site distance, clearance?
Sorry, let me check that just a moment.
So the 6'9" is not necessarily a safety issue that's being presented in front of us, right? It's not a safety deterrent? Is that why?
It's a code issue. It's what the ordinance for the county provides at this state.
But Mr. Jones is asking, what is the public policy behind the ordinance?
Yes, safety.
And is it safety?
It's a safety issue, right. I had a question, Jamie. So the 6'8", that's just for lettering or signage? So that actual structure could be taller?
Correct, because that would be the supporting structure, so that can be taller. And like the applicant had stated, if they remove that symbol there, they would be compliant. It's the symbol that's making this proposed over.
It's their brand. So, but I think everything could be moved down or made a little smaller, and it perhaps would fit.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I just didn't see the need for such a tall. I couldn't see that.
Can you go back to the fencing exhibit?
I'm sorry, which one?
The fence.
Did he give us a reason why he needed such a tall fence right there? No.
Just scale, proportions.
So I'm looking for, we've had discussion, more discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion that we deny application A2303 based on the staff recommendation.
Second.
3 of them, right? Right,
There was a setback, the height, and there was a setback, the height, and
the sign.
the sign.
Do we want to break them down?
So I think you could combine them if you wished. If anyone wanted to vote in favor of one of those variances, though, that they would be inclined to vote against the whole motion. So.
Yeah, I think the tower one it's tough. I mean, I really think, yeah, just my input. By everything else, I feel like they could reduce appropriately. Yeah.
That would put the towers at 4 foot from the property line, if I'm reading that right.
Yes. 4'3" and 4'4".
I think there's 3 variances, right? Yes. All right.
I'm sorry, it's the setback, it's the height, and it's the, I keep to think of.
So it's the fence height.
I'll amend the motion to deny A2303 for the height of the maximum height of the sign, the required front setback, and the requirement that the fence not exceed 4 feet in height.
So you have a motion, I'm looking for a second.
You say that again? I'm sorry. Say the motion. What was it? Is it all 3 of them or are we doing 2?
Yes, all 3. The height of the sign, the setback of the pillars, and the fence cannot exceed 4 feet in height.
It leaves the towers. Are you leaving the towers out or?
The setback
For the, that is the towers? Okay. I'll second.
We have a motion, a second, when you're ready.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Jenkins?
I vote in support of application 823-03.
Sorry, before you go further, are you in support of the application or support of the motion?
In favor of the motion for application 823.
To deny. To deny.
I'm in favor of denying application 82303 based upon the information that has been presented this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
I'm going to agree with Mr. Jenkins based on the staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
I vote no on the motion as I feel the towers should be able to grant the towers. So with that, I vote no to the motion.
Mr. Carter?
I vote to deny A2303 based on the comments tonight in my motion.
Thank you. Ms. Hudson?
To deny. No, I vote in favor of the motion to deny. I believe that this is out of character for the surrounding areas. This is a small back road that has one-story houses, ranchers, and I feel that this entrance is out of character and will seriously negatively affect neighboring properties.
Thank you. Ms. Denny?
I vote yes to deny. I think that I think that this is completely out of character. I really concur with the staff recommendations all across the board, and I'm just was taken aback when I saw this, and to me, that one part about it is really about a sign ordinance, and I think you all know over many years how I feel about the sign ordinance. So, absolutely, I do not see any single sign of an exceptional practical difficulty. The testimony, what I heard from the testimony, it really was because we want it. I did not hear a true exceptional practical difficulty. So therefore, I vote yes to deny.
Thank you, ma'am. That's 5 in favor of the motion and 1 against.
Okay, having received the majority of positive votes on the application to deny, the application is hereby denied. Now I'm looking for a motion.
Before we adjourn,
sorry, go ahead.
If I could just bring back up, I had sent out an email to everyone, and everyone confirmed that they were okay with starting the meetings at 6 p.m. And that would be effective the July 20th meeting. So as long as everybody still concurs, we will start July 20th. The meetings will start at 6 p.m.
I certainly, that's what the majority vote was, but I don't recall agreeing to that. I thought it was too early because we have members who walk in, close to the edge sometimes, and so I just felt like it wasn't fair to Mr. Cusick, and frankly, I love having this engineer sitting next to me.
Well, Joan, it's been real and it's been fun, but I make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay, I'm good. I'm good. Okay, motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor? Aye.